Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin cast their lines into a deceptively calm sea, but the final battle for the profound sky continent is already burning the horizon. As divine powers clash and secrets unravel, the last evil god aura falls silent. Leave a like and subscribe to witness the culmination. See, the sea breeze was mild and gentle on this day, and a small boat drifted in the wind along the mildly rippling surface of this boundless ocean. On top of this small boat, Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin each held a long fishing rod in their hands as they maintained nearly exactly the same posture. Two fishing lines which had been cast into the sea now drew two parallel lines along the surface of the water. Given Yun Wuxin's profound strength, if she truly wanted to catch some fish, she simply needed to shoot out some profound energy, and she would blast tens of thousands of fish out of the water every minute. However, the joy and satisfaction that came from calmly waiting for a fish to get hooked on your lines simply could not be replaced. At the same time, it could be said to be a form of training for one's mind. In the distant skies above, Feng Ziner stood guard far away from the two. Furthermore, Feng Zuer, who stood by her side, was also guarding them. If one were to ask which was the most populous species in the entire blue pole star, it would undoubtedly be the species which lived in the sea. After all, 99% of the blue pole star was composed of water, and one could say that the distances between the three continents were extremely far in the vast ocean. But an enormous ocean also meant that there would be enormous members of the ocean species, and amongst them would exist several sea creatures so strong that even Feng Ziner would have a hard time dealing with them. Even though these strong sea beasts were normally located deep in the ocean, and the chance of meeting any one of them was extremely faint, Feng Zuer would definitely not allow even the slightest possibility of danger to remain. Yun Qi was sitting upright, his eyes faintly closed. If not for the fact that his fishing rod was drawing a perfect curve in the air, anyone would have thought that he had fallen asleep already. Beside him, Yun Wuxin sneakily snuck a few glances at him. After that, she blinked her eyes. Immediately, the patch of sea in front of her began to faintly move as abnormal ripples appeared on its surface. "No cheating," Yun Qi suddenly said. Yun Wuxin hurriedly withdrew the thread of profound energy she had sneakily released as she stuck out her tongue. She mumbled under her breath, "Really, Daddy? You're always quibbling with a little kid. This is something that you said yourself. You wanted a fair competition," Yun Qi said with a serious look on his face. "But," Yun Wuxin said in a discontented voice, "why are the fish biting on your line? I've sat here for an entire hour, but I haven't caught a single fish." HMMM, Yun Qi's lips crooked up on grin. "Of course there's a trick to it." "What trick?" Yun Wuxin put down her fishing rod and shook her father's arm. "Teach me, teach me. Hurry up and teach me." "I'm not gonna teach you," Yun Qi said as he tilted his head. "This is something that you'll have to realize yourself. Your master has definitely said this to you before. Fishing is also a form of mental cultivation. So the only way for you to learn anything and benefit from it is to rely on your own comprehension. But it's already been so long, and I still haven't been able to think of anything. How about this, Daddy? Can you give me a little hint?" "Just a tiny one?" Yun Wuxin pleaded with him anxiously. "No can do. Stingy." Yun Wuxin pouted. "If Daddy doesn't tell me, I'll tell Mother that you flirted with Aunt." Yun Qi's arms trembled, and he nearly dropped his fishing rod into the ocean. He anxiously said, What do you mean flirted with your aunt? Don't talk nonsense." "I'm not talking nonsense." Yun Wuxin pout grew even deeper. "I saw it with my own eyes. Furthermore, I caught you in the act many times. It wasn't only with Aunt. It was also with Aunt Hangsu, Aunt Hanyu, and—" Wait. Yun Qi stopped her from speaking in a great panic. But after that, the look on his face changed, and he spoke in an incomparably proper and serious tone. "Zinner, you must remember that what you think you're seeing might not always be what is actually happening. Could it be that you've forgotten that your daddy used to be the Asgard master of frozen cloud Asgard? I can still be considered the grand Asgard master. Even though I no longer possess any profound strength, my understanding of the profound way is still far stronger than any of them. So when I give them guidance, there will inevitably be some body contact between me and the person that I am guiding, and that's how it is." "Oh," Yun Wuxin dragged out her reply, an unconvinced expression on her face. "There were many times that Master and I witnessed those scenes together. Master said that Daddy has always been this sort of person, so there wasn't a need to be surprised at all. HMPH, Master wouldn't lie to me. At number %, The corner of Yun Qi's mouth twisted up. Why did Zuer tell Zinner everything? Oh, you better believe that I'm going to spank you tonight. Sai not having profound strength was really inconvenient. He could not even notice that someone was spying on him while he was doing naughty things. PFFFFTTTT. In the distance, Feng Zuer covered her lips as she giggled. Feng Ziner turned her head towards Feng Zuer, her eyes filled with suspicion. At this distance, Feng Zuer could naturally hear every single word with perfect clarity, but she was not able to. Oh, that Zinner. Feng Zuer shook her head, laughing softly as she mumbled to herself. I'm going to punished by Big Brother Yun yet again. Feng Ziner's suspicions grew even deeper. Punishment. Ah, Feng Ziner gave a soft cry before she hurriedly shook her head. Nothing, it's nothing, I was just talking to myself. Her face was already flushed red even as she said those words. The absolutely magnificent and beautiful scene that had unwittingly appeared in front of Feng Ziner caused her to lapse into a daze for a good long while. Daddy, Master is so powerful. In fact, she's so powerful that everyone says that Master is the most powerful person in the entire world, and every time someone sees Master, they will be especially respectful. So why is she so obedient to Daddy? It seems as if Master won't object to anything that Daddy says. When the faraway Feng Zuer heard this question, she could not help but smile. That goes without saying. Of course it's because your dad's charm is extremely potent. You're so narcissistic. Cough, cough, who was the one who taught you that word? Of course it was Mom. Daddy, between Mom and Master, who do you think is more beautiful? It was very clear that this was a Catchmanist 22 kind of question where the answer would be wrong no matter how you answered it. But how could the clever Yun Qi fall for this trick? Instead, he shot the question back at Zinner in a cheery voice. Then who does Zinner feel is more beautiful? Of course it's Master, Yun Wuxin replied without the slightest bit of hesitation. Aren't you afraid your mother will be unhappy if she hears this? Yun Qi asked in a worried and anxious voice. Of course not, because Mother can't hear me right now. But Master can hear me just fine, he. Feng Zuer's lips curved up into a smile once more, stunning Feng Ziner with her beauty once more. But immediately, she suddenly saw Feng Zuer's expression turn stiff as her gaze suddenly swiveled around and looked in the southeastern direction. Feng Ziner had also unconsciously followed her gaze. However, she only saw the surface of the dark blue sea which stretched all the way to the horizon. Feng Zuer's expression was not the only thing that had changed. In nearly the blink of an eye, the look in her eyes and her aura had drastically changed as well. Feng Ziner hurriedly asked, Goddess Sis, what's wrong? Feng Zuer did not say anything. Instead, she simply grabbed her, and with a flash of light, the both of them had already arrived in the air above the small boat. Ah! Master, Yun Wuxin glanced upwards, but just as she greeted her master, she was startled by the expression on Feng Zuer's face. Leave, we have to leave quickly. As she said those words, she swiftly released her profound energy and used it to cover Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin. What's going on? Yun Qi asked in a deep voice. Feng Zuer's reaction caused him to suddenly have a premonition that something extremely bad was going to happen. She had already had the power that came with entering the divine way, so there was nothing in this world that should be able to cause her to make that sort of expression. With a bang, the small boat exploded. As Feng Zuer anxiously used her profound strength, she had already carried up the three of them and swiftly fled. There is an abnormally strong aura drawing near to us. Oh no. Feng Zuer's expression changed yet again. The other party had not seemed to notice at her at the very beginning, but following the release of her profound energy, she instantly sensed an aura which was far stronger and more tyrannical than any aura she had ever sensed, firmly lock on to her. The speed at which it was approaching them also suddenly grew even quicker. Rip! The space that existed in the lower star realms was simply too inferior, and weak so one who possessed divine profound strength could easily leap through it. As space violently rippled in front of them, a figure appeared out of thin air, as if she had instantly teleported to their location. A gorgeous woman with a lithe and lissom figure had appeared in front of them. Due to her confidence in her own looks and figure, she was dressed in a very deliberate and revealing fashion. The words glamorous beauty suited her perfectly. No matter where she went, she would immediately attract the gazes of many men. But it was very clear that she had found the wrong point of reference today. It was just a little while ago that she had actually sensed a divine aura on this lowly plane in the lower realms. In her shock and amazement, she had swiftly rushed toward this aura, seeking to investigate what it was, both her eyes and her aura immediately locking onto her target. But the very first moment she saw Feng Zuer's features clearly, Her eyes went wide for several breaths. As a woman who had always taken pride in her own appearance, for the very first time in her life, she actually felt so inferior that she felt ashamed to show her face. Furthermore, her clothes, which deliberately flaunted her figure, had now undoubtedly added to her feeling of shame. Under her master's orders, this girl had come to investigate one of the other continents on this small planet. This was Lin Qingyu, who had been assigned to investigate the profound sky continent. Feng Zuer's expression was calm, but her entire body was wound tighter than a spring. Ever since her profound strength had stepped into the divine way, she had no longer felt anything that could be called an oppressive feeling. At this very moment, however, she could feel an extremely clear oppressive aura radiating from this woman's body. This feeling undoubtedly told her that this woman's power was above her own. Even though Xianxia no longer possessed any divine senses, Feng Zuer's reaction had told him everything. A dreadful thought flashed through his mind. Someone from the God realm? But why would someone from the God realm be here? Compared to the God realm, the aura of the lower realms was thin and inferior, and it did not help one's cultivation in the slightest. Furthermore, an aura that was far too muddy and turbid would even shorten one's lifespan to a certain degree. As a result, the profound practitioners of the God realm would never deign to come to the lower realms unless they had some special reason. However, the only thing that could cause Feng Zuer to make such a reaction was divine profound strength. "Big sister," Feng Zuer said with a small smile on her face, her voice soft and gentle. "Where do you desire to go? To be able to meet each other in this blue sea is also a kind of a wonderful fate. If we can help you in any way, please do not stand on ceremony." If Feng Zuer had been by herself, she would not be afraid. However, right now Xianxia, Yun Wuxin, and Feng Zioner were by her side. Her profound energy quietly protected the trio, but she did not dare make any sudden moves. She could only keep that small smile plastered on her face while praying that the other party did not have any malicious intentions. Perhaps Lin Qingyu did not have any malicious intentions originally. However, when was a woman at her scariest? It was not when she was facing her sworn enemies, no. Rather, it was when the fires of jealousy raged in her heart. This was especially true because she had met a girl whose appearance had caused her to feel so inferior that she actually felt a sense of shame in the lowly and inferior lower realms that she looked down upon and despised. If this was the God realm, the only thing she could do was to live with that jealousy. But in the lower realms, this sort of jealousy could be swiftly vented and released in various ways. She smiled as she spoke in an unhurried and languid voice. Who would have thought that I would actually meet someone who had entered the divine way in this tiny lower realm? It truly is a rare occasion. Furthermore, she used a gaze which secretly burned with the fires of jealousy to measure Feng Zuer as she spoke with narrowed eyes. "This little sister is so beautiful. If my master saw you, he would definitely like you a lot." Feng Zuer's brows sank slightly, but the smile on her face did not waver. Big sister must be joking. If we were to talk about who is more beautiful, how could I even compare to Big Sister? The girl's words caused Xianxia's heart to sink heavily. The words, tiny lower realm, had undoubtedly proved that she had come from the God realm. Furthermore, she had also mentioned a master. Could it be that she had not come by herself? "Daddy, who is she? Is she a bad person?" Yun Wuxin could sense that something was wrong with the current atmosphere, so she whispered that question in a very soft voice. Just as Xianxia was about to reply, she suddenly sensed the girl shifting her gaze towards him. At this time, a thought suddenly flashed through his head, and he swiftly tried to turn his face to the side. However, it was already too late. Lin Qingyu's gaze swept across his face. After that, her eyes jolted open as a shocked cry flew from her lips. Xianxia. Realm, who would be unaware of the name? Xianxia. During the profound God convention, the appearance of Xianxia had been seared into the memories of the entire Eastern divine region via the eternal heaven projection. He was the #1 person among the Eastern divine region's young generation. His master came from a middle star realm, and as a result, he had become a hero in the hearts of all the profound practitioners in the middle and lower star realms. It was not simply a matter of him achieving first place in the profound God convention's conferred God battle either. There was not a single person in the Eastern divine region who did not know that the eternal Heaven God Emperor and the Brahma Heaven God Emperor had fought over the matter of taking him as a direct disciple. They also knew that the Brahma monarch goddess had wanted to lower herself to marry him, and even the supreme ruler of the primal chaos himself, the dragon monarch, had announced in front of everyone that he desired to take him as a foster son. As someone born in the stellar sun realm, a lower star realm, how could Lin Qingyu not know who Xianxia was? However, Xianxia was a lofty shining star that even the king realms had fought over, so she could naturally only admire him from afar. She had never once dared to hope that she could meet him. But today, on this planet in the lower realm, she had actually seen someone who looked incomparably similar to him. Her utterance of that name startled Feng Zuer and the rest. Yun Wuxin asked in astonishment, "Daddy, does she know you?" "Hey, heh." After she had unwittingly let out that surprised cry, Lin Qingyu started to laugh instead. "How amusing! It's simply far too amusing. To think that there would actually be such a similar person in this world." Yun Qi did not have any profound strength, but with Su Linger by his side, his body and health had been well taken care of, and his outwards appearance had been nearly perfectly restored. If anyone from the God realm saw him now, the name Yun Qi would immediately fly from their lips in surprise and astonishment. But this would only last for the very first instant, and they would very quickly realize that this was only someone who looked far too much like him, and that this person definitely could not be the Yun Qi they knew about. This was because the latter was the #1 god child in the God realm, someone who everybody in the God realm had marveled at. However, the man in front of them was a small fry who lived in the lower realms, who did not even have the slightest bit of profound aura. Besides, in the eyes of the God realm, Yun Qi had long ago died in the evil infant calamity that had struck the star God realm. "Ah, what a pity," Lin Qingyu sighed languidly. "To be crowned with a face that all of the women in the God realm adore, yet to also be such a complete piece of trash at the same time. The existence of someone like you is practically an insult to God child Yun. I think it'd better if you disappeared instead." Her voice was cottony and coquettish, and it sounded querulous and plaintive. But the moment her voice fell, she suddenly lashed out as a beam of fire abruptly exploded from her raised finger. Even though Feng Zuer's profound strength had already entered the divine way, her practical combat experience was far too lacking compared to Yun Qi's. As a result, the thought that this girl who had no previous contact or enmity with them, a girl who they were meeting for the first time, would actually suddenly attack them while talking had never crossed her mind. In her great shock, Feng Zuer's profound energy instantly surged forward as it swiftly formed a protective barrier. As a muffled explosion rang through the air, the sea region below them immediately flipped upside down as Lin Qingyu's power was firmly pushed aside. However, behind her, Feng Zioner, Yun Wuxin, and Yun Qi were simply far too near to her, far too near to place where the two people's powers had clashed. Feng Zuer had blocked Lin Qingyu's power, but she had not been able to completely suppress the shockwave that spread through the air. Allah! For the first 11 years of her life, Yun Wuxin had grown up in seclusion together with Chu Yuechen. After she had found her father, everyone around her had clambered over each one another to pamper her to the high heavens, so she had never ever encountered such a situation before. She let out a startled cry, but her first instinct was not to protect herself. Instead, in a completely subconscious act, she used all of her power to protect her father. Feng Zioner had moved at an even faster speed as she used all of her power to protect Yun Qi. The spatial shockwaves caused by the collision of profound energy could not even be considered an aftershock. Feng Zioner and Yun Wuxin, who had the powers of a throne and an low-ranked overlord respectively, were not hurt in any way. However, to the Yun Qi who did not even have the strength to truss a chicken, this was a calamity that he could not endure at all. Yun Qi's body resembled a sheet of glass that had just suffered a heavy blow. In an instant, countless cracks appeared on his body, and he fainted dead away before he could even let out a cry of misery. One did not know whether he was dead or alive. If not for Feng Zioner and Yun Wuxin's power protecting his body, he would have already been ripped into countless fragments. "Daddy!" Bright red blood stains swiftly spread across Yun Qi's entire body, and blood filled Yun Wuxin's eyes. She let out a blood-curdling scream as she pressed her hand against his body, frantically trying to stem the blood that crazily flowed from his body, while also trying to seal up all the cracks on his body. She felt the world spin. It was as if she was trapped in a nightmare, as if her entire world was collapsing. Feng Zuer turned back, her phoenix mane instantly turning ghastly white. The flames on her body burned as she shouted in a voice that faintly trembled, "Hurry up and leave! Hurry up and bring him to Linger! Hurry up and go!" His entire body had ruptured, and his injuries were not only on the surface, even his internal organs had been affected. For an ordinary person, this was basically a death sentence. Everything had happened far too quickly and far too suddenly. The two of them, father and daughter, had been merrily enjoying their time together, and everything had been perfect. Yet a dreadful nightmare, a nightmare that had happened for no reason at all, had descended upon their heads with no warning whatsoever. "Oh!" Lin Qingyu's brows twitched. It was as if she was very surprised that Feng Zuer was able to block her power. Yun Wuxin's hand was dyed with the blood that was flying out of Yun Qi's body, and Yun Qi's life was slipping away at a frightful pace. Feng Zainer's reaction was not much stronger than Yun Wuxin's, and she felt as if she had been plunged into an abyss. Due to her great alarm and fright, she could barely circulate any profound energy. Her shivering eyes made contact with Yun Qi's pallid and bloodless face. In this instant, the words that the Phoenix Spirit had told her that day suddenly rang out in the sea of her soul. It was as if a flame of hope had been lit in the all-encompassing darkness. Her entire body shook, and even as she panicked, she took out a scarlet tail feather as fast as she could. The moment that tail feather appeared, Feng Zuer felt her soul strongly react to it. Her head whipped back like lightning, and she stared at that tail feather. A scarlet-red tail feather that resembled a cluster of burning flames was releasing an unbelievably dense divine spirit aura. "That is?" she unwittingly asked. However, Feng Zainer no longer had the time to explain. As the flames above the tail feather ignited, the firelight that was released from those flames engulfed her, Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin, and in the next instant all three of them vanished into thin air. All that remained was a tail feather that was rapidly burning up and scattering within the flames. "MNNN, a dimensional escape!" Lin Qingyu's eyes narrowed, but she could not be bothered to chase after them. Her eyes continuously swept over Feng Zuer as the flames of jealousy in her heart burned hotter and hotter. Even though she did not know what had happened, and even though she did not know what the tail feather in Feng Zainer's hand had done, Feng Zuer felt somewhat relieved now that they had left. Following that, the flames burning on her body swiftly soared in tandem with the fury in her heart. "You and I are not acquainted with one another and have no enmity with one another. So why did you have to strike such a vicious blow?" If Feng Zuer had gone to the God realm like Yun Qi, she would not have asked this question. Did the people of the God realm ever need a reason for killing the people from the lower realms? They did not need one. They did not need one at all. It was akin to a normal person deciding whether to stamp a few ants on the roadside to death or not. That person did not need a reason. They only needed to be in the mood. Or perhaps they had merely stepped on them by accident. Yun Qi did not know what it was like in the other divine regions. But in the Eastern Divine Region, there was a prohibition laid down by the eternal Heaven God realm. This prohibition stated that people from the God realm were not allowed to kill people from the lower realms for no good reason. But Yun Qi was keenly aware that this prohibition basically amounted to nothing, and it was not because all of these star realms did not revere the eternal Heaven God realm. Rather, it was because eternal Heaven's adjudicators could not even regulate the laws within the Eastern Divine Region. So where could they find the time to be bothered about the lower realms? Moreover, the lower realms that had suffered oppression and slaughter could not complain to the eternal Heaven God realm. They did not even know about the existence of the eternal Heaven God realm in the first place. Besides, Lin Qingyu did have a reason for her sudden attack. Her reason was that Yun Qi simply resembled Yun Qi far too much. Yun Qi was not only the #1 god child of their generation in the Eastern Divine Region, he was also the hero and the pride of all the profound practitioners from the middle and lower star realms. So Lin Qingyu was naturally filled with adoration for him. However, it was a pity that even though she was among the cream of the crop in her own generation within the stellar sun realm, when compared to Yun Qi, she did not even have the qualifications to lick his feet. Even her master did not have the qualifications to do so, much less herself. Yet a cripple from the lower realms actually looked exactly like him. Like what she had said previously, it was practically an insult to God-child Yun, so she had merely reached out to snuff out this insult. If Yun Qi had known the reason for her sudden attempt on his life, he would not know how to feel. Heh. Lin Qingyu let out a peal of coquettish laughter. In fact, she laughed so hard that even her buttocks and breasts shook. "Little sister, you still haven't reached the level where you can have an opinion about who I choose to kill. Speaking of which, all of them have fled, so why haven't you? Could it be that you want to cross swords with me?" Feng Zuer tightly clenched her hands as the flames in her beautiful eyes gradually deepened. She did not know who the woman in front of her was, where she had come from, or why she had come to this place. But her attack just now had instantly plunged Xianxia into the abyss of death. Besides the fury that currently filled her entire body, she also felt the terror of not knowing whether Xianxia was dead or alive. So how could she simply leave? Lin Qingyu finally started to measure Feng Zuer with her eyes. Even when she was in a state of extreme fury, she was still beautiful enough to dazzle. She spoke in a slow and languid voice. "You're such a beauty. If I offer you to master, he'll definitely be extremely happy. He might even give me many rewards. But after that, I might just fall out of favor. Ah, this is truly a conundrum." "I don't care who you are," Feng Zuer said in an icy cold voice. "You dared to hurt him, so you must die today." BZZZZN. Scarlet red phoenix flames violently swayed like a volcano that was about to erupt as a fury and killing intent that Lin Qingyu had never felt in her life locked onto her. If Lin Qingyu's master, Lin Jun, was here, he would immediately recognize that those were phoenix flames. It was a pity that Lin Qingyu not only possessed shallow knowledge and experiences, she also did not have the qualifications to come into contact with the plane of the flame god realm. When she saw the flames which explosively flared up on Feng Zuer's body, even though she could vaguely feel that something was not quite right, she immediately dismissed the feeling that should not exist in the first place. Instead, the corners of her lips curved up into an incomparably contemptuous smile of disdain. "Oh, you're playing with fire in front of me," she said in a cheery voice. "I just don't know if these pathetic and lowly lower realm flames that you possess will be so pitiful that they can't even ignite in front of the divine flames from the god realm." Feng Zuer's profound strength was at the 3rd level of the divine origin realm, while Lin Qingyu's profound strength was at the 5th level of the divine origin realm. But in Lin Qingyu's eyes, Feng Zuer was not simply weaker than her by 2 levels. After all, she had cultivated her divine way in the god realm, while the woman in front of her had cultivated her divine way in the lower realms. Even though it was rare and marvelous for someone to be able to reach the divine way in such a lowly and turbid world, how could this place even be compared with their grand and noble god realm? It was not only in terms of their divine power. Even the levels of their profound arts could not be compared. Thus, without even mentioning the fact that Feng Zuer's profound strength was weaker than her by 2 levels, even if they were equally strong, Lin Qingyu would still only have disdain for Feng Zuer. As she slowly and lazily raised her arm in contempt, a cluster of deep purple flames blazed to life above her palm. But immediately, her brows suddenly twitched, because the moment the purple flames in her hand blazed to life, they had actually curled back abnormally, as if they were afraid of something. Feng Zuer did not say a single word, but a phoenix image flashed in the pupils of her eyes. "Boom!" With an explosive cry, the flames around Feng Zuer's body had risen to a height of more than 3,000 meters, dyeing the blue skies above and the blue sea below completely scarlet. In an instant, Lin Qingyu's expression went completely stiff. The purple flames that had just ignited in her hand simply shriveled up and died like little bugs which had been frightened out of their minds. The space between them was closed in a single instant, as the explosive flames burning on Feng Zuer's body spread out to form the fiery figure of a gigantic phoenix, which then mercilessly hurtled toward the Lin Qingyu, whose expression had abruptly changed. When it came to profound strength, Lin Qingyu was indeed 2 levels stronger than Feng Zuer. However, the fiery might which descended along with Feng Zuer's profound strength was so strong that it shocked her. The Lin Qingyu, who had originally been prepared to make a few casual attacks and had even planned to play with her opponent, was actually pushed back 2 steps. The purple flames on her body ignited, and she immediately started using 80% of her profound strength as she prepared to clash with Feng Zuer's furious phoenix flames. Boom! Fiery light blazed through the sky, and all the clouds within their field of vision were torn apart and burned to nothingness. The sea below them sank in an extremely exaggerated fashion, and terrifying whirlpools were formed afterwards. Due to her inferior profound strength, Feng Zuer was blasted far away. However, the flames on her body continued to boil up and flare explosively. Her phoenix flames were not weakened in the slightest. However, even though it looked like Lin Qingyu had gained the upper hand, half of the purple flames on her body had been extinguished, and her originally haughty and pretentious expression had also darkened. Qingyu's eyes. After that, a smile crossed her face, but that smile looked exceptionally forced and ugly. "Heh heh heh. I really did not imagine that such a base and lowly world would actually hide such a huge and pleasant surprise. But she was very much aware of whether it was actually a pleasant surprise or a frightful shock. The phoenix flames were normally exceptionally mild, flames which serenaded the world. But at this moment, the scarlet flames which burned on Feng Zuer's body were as violent and fierce as the golden crow flames which used to burn on Yun Qi's body. Moreover, the fiery might being emitted by Feng Zuer was of such a high level that it was frightening. A terrifying sensation invaded Lin Qingyu's body, a sensation which made her afraid of meeting Feng Zuer's gaze for too long. This sensation undoubtedly caused her heart to grow more and more alarmed. Feng Zuer was rarely ever angry, and this was only the second time in her life that she had felt killing intent towards someone else. She stretched out her hand, the flames in her palm shooting straight at Lin Qingyu's chest. "But surely you can't be so naive as to think that you are truly worthy to be my opponent," Lin Qingyu said with a cold smile. However, matter whether it was her words or demeanor, they were completely devoid of the composure and contempt from before. On the contrary, right now, they were tinged by a faint apprehension that she definitely would not be willing to admit. Feng Zuer did not speak. Instead, the image of the phoenix flashed in her eyes once more. In an instant, the scarlet flames that were already raging on her body swelled up even more explosively, creating a gigantic storm of flames which swept straight towards Lin Qingyu. HMPH? Lin Qingyu lightly gritted her teeth as purple flames swirled around her. This time, her profound strength erupted at full strength as extremely dense purple flames ignited on her arm, and she tried to grab the phoenix flames in a forceful and strong manner. If she knew that the flames in front of her were phoenix flames, even if she had 3 times the guts, she would not dare to do so. As the flames neared her body, her expression instantly and dramatically changed as a deep astonishment and disbelief clearly flashed in the depths of her eyes. However, her reaction was also extremely quick as her hand retracted backwards as fast as lightning. With a quick twist of her waist, she used an exquisite yet strange movement skill. Her body flipped sideways and moved to a point over 3 kilometers away from her original location. At this moment, she also thrust her arm out with all of her might. Purple flames filled the sky, instantly transforming into the figure of a wolf that towered over 300 meters before it rushed straight toward Feng Zuer. Feng Zuer's feet did not move. With a light turn of her arm, phoenix flames soared into the sky, instantly incinerating the wolf made of purple flames, as if she had crushed rotten wood. This scene sent tremors running through Lin Qingyu's body. She looked as if her heartstrings had been cut, color draining from her face in fear and astonishment. She was shocked that she could scarcely believe her own eyes. Her opponent's profound strength was indeed only at the 3rd level of the divine origin realm, yet it could so easily suppress and incinerate the divine flames that she had ignited with all of her might. The only thing that could explain this was that the level of her opponent's profound art was higher than her own, and her current opponent's profound art was far above her own at that too. A profound practitioner from the lower realms possessed a profound art far above her own. She had never heard such an absurd and ridiculous joke in her entire life. As the fragmented purple flames swiftly dissipated in the air, Lin Qingyu had to watch her own flames disperse into nothingness. Right now, her heart was not only filled with astonishment and fear, because the feeling she felt most intensely was humiliation. Her current humiliation was equivalent to the amount of mockery and contempt she had showed to Feng Zuer just now. "So this is all you've got," Feng Zuer said coldly. Those words had undoubtedly stabbed right into Lin Qingyu's heart like a poisoned needle, causing her face, which could still be regarded as pretty and charming, to instantly twist up. Her voice had also become rather hoarse as she spoke. "Heh, heh, heh, you think you're worthy, a piece of trash from the lower realms, you think you're worthy enough to act cocky in front of me. Trash from the lower realms will always only be trash." Her chest violently heaved as the purple flames on her body undulated. An amethyst longsword had already appeared in her hand, and the moment purple flames ignited on her sword, it suddenly shone with a strange purple glow. It was in the instant that this purple light flashed that it suddenly pierced toward Feng Zuer. Boom! The blue sea tossed and turned, and the blue skies were once more covered in fiery light. What did a battle between divine, profound powers mean in this world? It was absolutely no less than a calamity filled with heavenly might. In the blink of an eye, the tremors in space had spread to the space hundreds of kilometers around them. In the south of the profound sky, Countless profound beasts let out terrified roars due to this dreadful profound aura. After that, they either wildly scrambled about like headless chickens or simply shivered on the ground, completely paralyzed. Many people raised their heads and looked to the south. In their widened eyes, the skies in the south had shockingly been split into scarlet and purple. A feeling that was hard to describe told them that this fiery light was something they could not understand. A fiery light that could even pierce the dome of heaven. When one's profound strength reached the divine way, even the difference of a single level meant absolute superiority. As a result, even in the divine origin realm, the very first realm of the 7 divine profound realms, every level was split into even smaller realms that were described as early stage, mid-stage, late stage, and peak. These smaller realms were used to differentiate the grades of one's level. So to be able to ignore the difference in levels in divine profound strength meant one of two things. The first scenario was that the person had extremely great talent and aptitude, and either their understanding of the laws and principles of the profound way or their ability to control profound energy was abnormally good. The second scenario was that one's body or profound art was absolutely superior to the other person. Both of these scenarios were exceedingly rare. Before he had lost his profound strength, Xianxia was the only person in the universe who could ignore the difference in divine profound realms and defeat his opponent. This was also because he had fulfilled both of the scenarios described above. Whether it came to talent or physique, he was an extreme abnormality. He had inherited the powers of a creation god, and it was the complete and whole profound veins of a creation god too. Thus, when he faced a profound practitioner who had barely inherited the power of a true god, opponents who had at most inherited some bloodlines and profound arts, if they were in the same realm of power, it could even be said that he was bullying them. But he was the one and only exception in this universe. When Lin Qingyu faced Feng Zuer, whose flames clearly far exceeded her own in terms of grade, one could say that her world had been turned completely upside down, because she had never encountered this situation even in the god realm. Boom! RRRMMB? The sea region was crazily tossing and churning crazily, and most of the water could not even turn into water vapor as it was instantly incinerated into nothingness. It was good that this was at sea. If this battle had taken place in the profound sky continent or the illusory demon realm, one of those places would have already turned into a disaster zone. The sky flashed red and purple as their powers remained deadlocked for a long time. But after a phoenix cry pierced the skies, the purple flames were forcefully extinguished. Feng Zuer's body flipped as scores of star-scorching demon lotuses bloomed in the air in a matter of seconds. Boom, 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 boom. Half of the fire lotuses had been crushed, but the other half buried Lin Qingyu in a flaming hell of demon lotuses. Lin Qingyu suddenly let out a miserable cry as she shot straight down from the sky that was filled with fiery light, plunging into the restlessly churning sea region below. Feng Zuer's fragrant bosom rose and fell as she gasped heavily for breath. Even though she had relied on the phoenix flames to suppress Lin Qingyu, her opponent's profound strength had still been 2 levels higher than hers, so how could it have been easy? Even though Lin Qingyu had been burned by phoenix flames and had fallen into the sea, Feng Zuer would not be so naive as to believe that she had already been defeated. Given Lin Qingyu's profound strength, she probably had not even sustained any serious injuries. She did not take off in pursuit. Instead, she regulated her own energy and breathing before swiftly releasing her divine senses. Yet she could not detect Feng Zioner, Yun Wuxin, or Yun Qi's auras. She swiftly held up a sound transmission jade. "Zioner, where are all of you? How are Big Brother Yun's wounds?" But after she had finished sending her anxious speech, she realized that she was actually unable to transmit it. She hurriedly tried to send a sound transmission to Yun Wuxin, but she encountered the exact same result. Her heart was thrown into great chaos, so she swiftly sent a sound transmission to Su Linger. "Linger, have Big Brother Yun and Wuxin reached your location?" "No, they have not," Su Linger replied. Feng Zuer's anxious tone caused her heart to tense up, and her own tone had also clearly changed. "What happened? They did not send any sound transmissions to you. They didn't do that either. What exactly has happened?" "He was wounded. Zinner and Zioner are by his side. We need to hurry up and find them." Bang. Her emotions were in such a mess that her profound energy had actually gone out of control, causing the sound transmission jade in her hand to suddenly shatter and turn to dust. Feng Zuer balled her hands into fists as she stared intensely at the churning sea. She was extremely anxious to go and find Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin, but she couldn't leave yet, because no matter where she went, that woman was sure to follow. She needed to kill her. Whoosh! A colossal tidal wave suddenly exploded without any warning, and a beam of purple light shot out from the split tidal wave and soared straight towards Feng Zhuer's chest. Beneath that purple light, Lin Qingyu stood there completely naked, her hair wildly flying and her eyes filled with a violent hate. It was as if was staring at an enemy she could never reconcile with. It was also as if she had completely forgotten that she was the one who had been rude and contemptuous from the beginning, that she was the one who had insulted them first, and that she was the one who had hurt someone first. Kaboo! The blue skies above the sea were once again completely engulfed in fiery light. Feng Zhuer was unable to contact Feng Zioner and Yun Wuxin, and naturally there was a reason for that. Because at this moment, the two of them and Yun Qi had been transported into a special space. They were inside the Phoenix trial grounds. The world around them was pitch black. Feng Zioner tightly hugged Yun Qi, but the moment they appeared, she had already fallen to her knees and started crying out in panic. "Lord Phoenix God, I beg you, please hurry up and save young master, Lord Phoenix God." The change of location and Feng Zioner's voice caused Yun Wuxin to feel completely helpless and at a loss. However, at this moment, two huge scarlet eyes suddenly opened in the air above them, radiating a fiery red light in this world of darkness. This shocked Yun Wuxin so much that she let out a soft yelp. "Lord Phoenix God!" The Phoenix spirit had appeared, causing Feng Zioner let out a sorrowful cry, her entire body nearly collapsing from fear. What happened? Divine senses swept over Yun Qi's body as the Phoenix spirit's voice suddenly grew deep. It was a terrifying woman. She suddenly made a move to attack young master. Feng Zioner released profound energy from both her hands as she was trying her best to preserve the last bits of Yun Qi's weak and flagging life force. Her voice was shaking terribly as she spoke. That woman was extremely terrifying, even Goddess Sis. It's very possible that she is even more powerful than Goddess Sis. Those Phoenix eyes clearly slanted downwards. Even though its divine sense very rarely extended to the outside world, it was well aware of the identity of the Goddess Sis that Feng Zioner spoke of. Feng Zhuer was the one who had obtained the entire legacy and will of the other Phoenix divine spirit. She was also the first person in this world to truly enter the divine way. As such, she was worthy of being called the Phoenix Goddess. Could it be someone from that realm? The Phoenix spirit asked in a deep voice. The only people who could best Feng Zhuer were the people who lived in the God realm, the world which was currently considered the highest level of the primal chaos dimension. How could the current Feng Zioner even spare the effort to be bothered about that realm? Right now, the life force of the Yun Qi cradled in her arms was frighteningly weak and faint. If she relaxed her profound energy for even an instant, he might just expire on the spot. She pleaded, "Lord Phoenix God, young master has suffered extremely serious injuries. I beg you to save him. When you instructed me to follow him back then, you told me that if there was a day when his life was in danger, or he met with an unsolvable crisis, I was to burn the phoenix tail feather that you had bestowed upon me and bring him and Wuxin to this place. You can definitely save him. I beg that you save him quickly." 1.5 years ago, when Yun Qi was about to leave the Phoenix clan, the Phoenix spirit had specially summoned Feng Zioner to give her some instructions. No, it was to request that she stay at Yun Qi's side, while also bestowing upon her a phoenix tail feather that contained a special dimensional power. This would allow her to one day, when Yun Qi had met with an unsolvable danger, immediately burn that phoenix tail feather, bringing both him and Yun Wuxin here. It had heavily emphasized that she must not bring Yun Qi here alone. She had to bring Yun Wuxin as well. It was just that it had never thought that Yun Qi would actually be brought here so quickly. Furthermore, this definitely was not the opportunity it had been waiting for. But right now, they really had been met with an unsolvable crisis. Not only because Yun Qi had suffered fatal injuries, but even more because people from the God realm had actually come to this tiny planet. The primal chaos was enormous with 1 trillion planets and star realms, so the chances of someone from the God realm visiting one specific planet was extremely low. Besides, the profound practitioners who were used to the aura of the God realm would not even be willing to step into the lower realms in the first place. A beam of red light shot down and covered Yun Qi, protecting Yun Qi's incomparably weak life vein in place of Feng Zioner's profound energy. At the same time, it allowed the Phoenix spirit to have a clearer picture of how bad a condition Yun Qi's body was in. The Phoenix spirit gave a light sigh. To think that this day would actually come so quickly, sigh. Lord Phoenix God, I beg you to quickly save him. You can definitely save him, Feng Zion'er pleaded with the Phoenix Spirit again and again. I cannot save him. The Phoenix Spirit's words were like a bucket of cold water that was poured over Feng Zhuo and Yun Wuxin. His body is ruptured and all his internal organs are shattered. His life vein is heavily damaged and all of his meridians have been severed. Even if it was when I still had all of my divine powers, I still wouldn't be able to save him, the Phoenix Spirit said in a slow and gentle voice. The words of the Phoenix Spirit caused the color to drain from the pupils of Feng Zion'er's eyes. In a single instant, Yun Qi had been so severely wounded that he was on death's door. Normally, if Yun Qi had suffered any illness or injury, her first reaction would be to find Su Linger. But this time, it was the spatial tremors that had torn his body apart, and he had sustained both internal and external injuries. If not for the fact that her profound energy had been preserving Yun Qi's life all this while, those injuries had been enough to take his life in a single instant. Upon seeing such an injury, she could only think of the Phoenix Spirit, if even it was not able to save him. However, the words that the Phoenix Spirit was about to say would cause Feng Zion'er's lifeless eyes to light up once again. Even though I cannot save him, there is someone who can. In this world, she should be the only one who has the capability to do so as well. Who is it? Feng Zion'er's head jerked upwards as she shouted those words in an anxious voice. She is right in front of you. After the Phoenix Spirit had spoken, a pair of scarlet lights fell upon Yun Wuxin. Under that scarlet light, her eyes were shimmering with a watery light. It was clear that Yun Qi's serious injuries had severely shocked and frightened her. But as she listened to the Phoenix Spirit's words and felt its gaze, Yun Wuxin's lips parted slightly. You're talking about Wuxin? Feng Zion'er said in a stunned voice. The power that Yun Qi previously possessed had been inherited from an ancient creation god being known as the Evil God. The Phoenix Spirit did not withhold any information from them. The level of the Evil God's divine power is so high that it would be unfathomable to the two of you. After he was crippled, the Evil God divine power in his body also went silent. In a universe with no gods, there existed no power that could awaken the dead Evil God divine power, except for the last remaining trace of Evil God divine aura in this universe. However, that last trace of Evil God divine aura was inside the body of his daughter. That is also to say, your body. Those phoenix eyes stared at Yun Wuxin as it slowly told Yun Wuxin what it had told Yun Qi back then. Feng Zion'er listened intently. Even though she did not understand what a creation god being was, or what the Evil God divine power was, the Phoenix Spirit's words were enough for her to catch on to something. Could you be saying that? We need to draw out the Evil God divine aura from her profound veins and transfer it into Yun Qi's dead Evil God profound veins. Perhaps it would be like lighting a spark in the middle of a dormant volcano, causing it to awaken once more. It seemed like it was speaking to Feng Zion'er, but in reality, these words were being directed toward Yun Wuxin. So I can save Daddy this way? Feng Zion'er could not understand what the Phoenix Spirit was saying, so it was natural that Yun Wuxin understood what it was saying even less. But at the very least, it understood that the voice coming from these strange pair of eyes was telling her that there was a way to save her father. During this period of time you have lived with your father, you should have heard many legends regarding him, correct? Then you also should know just how strong he used to be. The Phoenix Spirit's eyes stared straight at Yun Wuxin. I cannot guarantee that this will definitely work, but if it does work, his power can be revived. Moreover, as long as he recovers his powers, even if his wounds were 10 times worse than they are right now, he would be able to completely recover from them in a short amount of time. Even though her mind was a maze of confusion, the Phoenix Spirit's last sentence caused Yun Wuxin's eyes to blaze with an incomparably bright light. She involuntarily took a small step forward as she asked in an anxious voice, Is it true? Is it true? Save my daddy. Please save my daddy, quick. Does this mean that you are willing to abandon your Evil God divine aura? The Phoenix Spirit asked. Yun Wuxin did not even understand anything about the Evil God divine aura, and she was even more completely unaware of what she possessed. She nodded her head without any hesitation. I don't know anything about this Evil God divine aura, but as long as you can save Daddy, anything is fine. I beg you to be quicker, Daddy is. Wait a minute. Feng Zion'er suddenly shouted at this moment as she spoke in an extremely uneasy voice. Lord Phoenix God, if we do as you say and draw the Evil God divine aura out of Yun Wuxin's profound veins, What will happen to Wuxin? She was very certain that the Phoenix Spirit had said these words to Yun Qi as well. But it was very clear that Yun Qi had not agreed to this. In fact, he would rather remain a cripple than agree to it. It was to the extent that he had never even mentioned this to anyone else before. If we want to draw out the evil god divine aura from her body, we first need to disperse all of the profound energy in her body. As a result, all of the cultivation she has attained up to today will be gone. Additionally, only a very small part of her abnormal talent is due to her phoenix bloodline. Most of it comes from the existence of the evil god divine aura. Once she loses that thread of evil god divine aura, her innate talent will also become ordinary. It is also possible that her profound veins will be harmed by this extraction. In fact, it definitely isn't impossible for her profound veins to be completely destroyed. The Phoenix Spirit did not try to hide or conceal anything. Since that is the case, then it also might not succeed, right? Feng Zioner asked in a dazed voice. She felt as if her wits had left her. There's about a 20% chance, the Phoenix Spirit replied, and it already felt that this 20% was an extremely high chance. This is the only method I can think of. There hasn't been any precedent for this in history, so I naturally cannot guarantee its success. But if this method truly can reawaken his evil god divine power, even if it's a 1 in a billion chance, we still need to try it. These words were said because of its position as the Phoenix Spirit who had inherited the will of the true Phoenix. This was because, ever since the moment it had sensed that dreadful aura, it had started to vaguely guess the reason why the evil god left such a complete inheritance and legacy behind. It was very possible that he had not only left behind power, even more than that, he had left behind hope. It was a hope that absolutely could not be shattered, and also a hope that it, as the inheritor of the true Phoenix's will, absolutely needed to protect. Yun Wuxin, the Phoenix Spirit's gaze grew even more focused. Did you understand what this noble one has just said? If you want to save your father, you will lose all of your power. Your innate talent will also disappear without a trace. Furthermore, there is a possibility that you will never recover, and your profound veins might also be heavily damaged. As such, are you still willing to gift your evil god divine aura to your father? She would lose all of her power, all of her hard work would vanish into thin air. Her innate talent would be damaged forever, and there was even a possibility that she would be crippled in the process. To a girl who was only 12 years old, those words and this choice were undoubtedly far too cruel. But what shocked Feng Zioner and what shocked the Phoenix Spirit even more was this. It was clear that Yun Wuxin had not yet digested everything she had just heard as she simply stared dazedly at the air. Yet she nodded her head without the slightest bit of hesitation. As long as I can save Daddy, I am willing to do anything. No, you can't. Feng Zioner shook her head. Young Master definitely will not agree to this. Young Master views Wuxin as his most precious treasure. He definitely won't agree to such a thing. If anything happens to Wuxin, Young Master, even if he can successfully regain all of his powers, he will definitely live in self-recrimination for all his life. He will live with an unbearable pain for all of his life. You can't. During this period of time, she had accompanied Yun Qi night and day, so she had witnessed just how precious Yun Wuxin was to him. How could he possibly accept such a thing? Then are you willing to watch him die instead? The Phoenix Spirit said with a sigh. Furthermore, if he does not recover his power, the person who wounded him might just bring an even greater calamity down on this world. Only he who has completely recovered his powers can defuse such a crisis. Given my experience and knowledge, this is a choice that has to be made before my eyes. Feng Zioner's face was pained. She kept shaking her head, but no words could come out of her mouth. Aunt Zioner, it's fine. Yun Wuxin's comforting words rang in her ear. She dazedly lifted her head to stare at Yun Wuxin, but Yun Wuxin's face contained not a single trace of pain, struggle, or hesitation. On the contrary, she wore a very small and warm smile on her face. Daddy played many games with me which involved making choices. But this choice was far simpler than any choice I had to make when Daddy played those games with me. Because I can live without having any profound strength, but I definitely cannot do without Daddy. Wuxin! Feng Zioner's vision instantly turned blurry. Furthermore, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having no profound strength, Yun Wuxin said with a cheery smile. Mom will protect me, Master will protect me, and Zioner will also protect me, right? Once Daddy regains his powers, he will protect me even more. Furthermore, this time I'm protecting Daddy, Mother, and Master. All of them will definitely praise me. WAH. Just thinking about it makes me feel so happy. Feng Zioner's lips quivered. She could not choose, yet Yun Wuxin had not hesitated in the slightest to make her choice. Those phoenix eyes clearly slanted upwards, as the soul fragment that had come from a divine spirit felt deep stirring. Yun Qi would choose to be a cripple forever instead of harming his daughter's innate talent. Yun Wuxin was willing to let go of all attachment to her profound strength and her innate talent just because there was a hope that her father could be saved. Perhaps from its point of view, human emotions were so marvelous and wonderful that they were hard to understand. Zioner, the phoenix spirit, said, "I understand your worries. I will bear all of his resentment and his hatred. I just hope that I can endure to that point." Lord Phoenix God. The words of the Phoenix God caused Feng Zioner's head to jerk upward. But she did not get a reply. Instead, a beam of red light descended from above and teleported her out of this Phoenix dimension. Scarlet light spread through the air, and only Yun Wuxin and Yun Qi, whose life force was so weak that it could barely be sensed, was left. He did not know that the Phoenix spirit had ignored his wishes and had advised Yun Wuxin to make a choice she definitely should not have made. "Yun Wuxin," the Phoenix spirit's voice was slow and solemn, "I will need you to be fully cooperative and willing in order for me to draw your evil god divine aura. As long as you are not willing, no one will be able to force you to do this. So this noble one will ask you one final time. Save Daddy." She had already spoken up anxiously without even waiting for the Phoenix spirit to finish. However, anxiety was not the only thing present in her voice. Even more than that, there was a resoluteness in her voice that should not have been present in someone so young. She lifted her face, her eyes staring straight at those scarlet phoenix eyes which hung in the air. The Phoenix spirit could not detect the slightest traces of discontent, unwillingness, nor hesitation from her eyes or her soul. The only thing it could sense was her fear and anxiety. "All right," the Phoenix spirit replied. A strange fiery light flashed through its scarlet eyes, and its originally stern and mighty voice became incomparably gentle. "This noble one will no longer speak any more unnecessary words. The only thing I can do is to use up all of my remaining power and soul to ensure that everything will succeed. Yun Wuxin, remember this well. If there comes a day that the darkness that enshrouds this universe is beaten back because of your father, then you will actually be the true savior of this universe, the one behind it all." As the Phoenix's gentle voice fell, those scarlet phoenix eyes suddenly widened to their biggest possible size and released two clusters of incomparably dense and deep phoenix flames, which engulfed both Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin. Southern Sea was still continuing. The sea, the space, and even the sky itself was being burned and shattered apart at every moment. This was the most dreadful battle that had ever happened in the history of the profound sky continent, bigger even than the battle between Yun Qi and Xianxia and Wenshin. When Yun Qi and Xianxia and Wenshin had fought, their cultivation had only been a half step into the divine way. But right now, two real divine way profound practitioners were clashing against each other with the intent to kill. Feng Zuer had been intentionally moving the battlefield deeper out to sea in order to avoid damaging the continent beneath her feet. As a result, both fighters had shifted several thousand kilometers to the south. Now that nothing else was holding her back, Feng Zuer's divine phoenix flames started burning brighter and brighter. If Lin Qingyu's profound art hadn't been fire-based, she would have had the upper hand in this battle. Unfortunately, her fire was shrinking and dissipating every time it clashed against Feng Zuer's ultimate flames. Despite possessing a much larger quantity of profound energy compared to her enemy, Lin Qingyu was beaten down by Feng Zuer to the point where even panting was becoming an impossibility. RRRMM? A phoenix flame formation exploded right in front of Lin Qingyu's chest, completely penetrating and burning away her protective aura. Lin Qingyu let out a horrible scream before falling into the sea while burning yet again. It took Lin Qingyu only an instant to regain herself and jump back into the air, but she looked much worse compared to before. She had lost more than half of her hair, and her garment had almost been burned away completely. Even her supple skin was covered in burn marks. If Lin Qingyu had a mirror right now, she would have been screaming at her own appearance. On the other side of the battlefield, Feng Zuer was panting heavily while a barely noticeable stream of blood flowed down from the corner of her lips. Otherwise, she was almost completely unhurt. Thanks to the Phoenix bloodline and the world ode of the Phoenix, Feng Zuer had absolute dominance over Lin Qingyu despite being inferior by 2 small realms. It was an outcome Lin Qingyu could never have imagined when she had first set her eyes on Feng Zhuo. "Just, you wait." Lin Qingyu was smiling, but her smile was especially sinister. "I've sent a sound transmission to Master. He'll soon show up and tear you to pieces, bitch." Lin Qingyu roared, and instead of escaping, she charged toward Feng Zhuo again as if she had gone crazy. Inside the Phoenix's trial room, Yun Wuxin pressed her tiny hand against Yun Qi's chest and allowed her profound energy to dissipate into nothingness. The loss of one's profound energy was also accompanied by the loss of one's vitality, so her body had felt lighter and lighter to her. In the end, she collapsed lightly on top of Yun Qi's chest. Yun Wuxin had lost all of her cultivation. Just several hours ago, she had broken through to the tyrant profound realm and was enjoying this moment of joy with her master, her mother, and her father. Limp and powerless, Yun Wuxin felt like sleeping then and there. However, she forced herself to open her eyes and watch her blood-drenched father. "The next step is to transfer the evil god divine aura from your profound veins to your father's. Just relax your mind and don't resist. You may sleep if that is your wish," the Phoenix spirit said. It could hardly believe how quietly it was speaking right now. But Yun Wuxin shook her head lightly. "I want to watch Daddy get better." "All right," the Phoenix spirit replied softly before a deep, fiery beam of light landed on Yun Wuxin's body. The light was powerful, gentle, and immeasurably cautious. The Phoenix spirit knew that failure wasn't an option. It wasn't just for the hope Yun Qi carried, it was also for the girl with a heart of gold. The fiery light entered Yun Wuxin's empty, profound veins and wrapped around the incredibly weak wisp of evil god divine aura. Then, the light started moving it down her arms, her palms, and finally into Yun Qi's body. When the divine aura had left Yun Wuxin's body, the girl felt like someone had taken a knife to her life veins. Her face turned deathly pale in an instant, and she lost even the last shred of strength she had inside her body. She was so weak that she couldn't even lift her little finger. However, her eyes remained stubbornly open. After the evil god divine aura had made it into Yun Qi's body, the Phoenix spirit guided it into his dead evil god profound veins. Then it spread out its power carefully and watched Yun Wuxin's evil god divine aura, also the last evil god divine aura in the entire world, spread out inside his profound veins, and returned to silence, deathly silence, so silent that it was starting to feel a little cold and stifling. Yun Qi's profound veins hadn't reacted at all. They were still completely dead and silent. Meanwhile, the divine aura had dissipated completely in just a few stifling breaths' time. Despite unleashing the full capacity of its spiritual perception, the Phoenix spirit wasn't able to sense it any longer. In the air, the wide-open pupils of the Phoenix slowly contracted bit by bit. Not only that, its aura had become weak, and the scarlet light in its pupils had become incredibly dim as well. The entire procedure had been silent and slow-going, and it had the full cooperation of Yun Wuxin's will. However, the Phoenix spirit still had to be very, very careful as it guided the evil god divine aura into Yun Qi's profound veins, so the amount of power and soul energy it expended every second was massive. Moreover, to the Phoenix spirit, losing its flame energy and soul energy was the equivalent of losing its lifespan. But it had failed. The evil god divine aura's entry had failed to trigger any reaction whatsoever from Yun Qi's dead evil god profound veins. The divine aura had dissipated as if it had been released into some random space before vanishing completely. The world's last evil god divine aura was gone just like that, and of course there was no way of returning it back to Yun Wuxin, although the Phoenix spirit had thought of the possibility of failure a long time ago. When it had actually happened, the disappointment and sense of loss that sat on its soul was far heavier it could ever imagine. It did not dare to even come face to face with the hope and tears in Yun Wuxin's eyes. The Phoenix spirit knew then that it had been far too naive. The evil god profound veins were an impossibly high-level existence, and there was simply no way they could have been awakened using a method that even it could carry out with its dying strength. That wasn't all. The Phoenix spirit had inevitably crushed a girl's hopes and purity of heart with its failure as well. "Daddy?" Yun Wuxin asked softly amidst the silence. The Phoenix spirit couldn't find it in itself to reply to her, but it had no choice. Its sad sigh resounded inside the darkening space. "Ah, child, you—" Before it could finish its sentence, a jade-green light suddenly appeared in the dark room. It was a color that shouldn't have appeared in this room no matter what. The Phoenix spirit cut itself short and stared straight at the source. The jade-green light was shining from Yun Qi's heart area, and it was warm and so pure that it was almost dreamlike. The shape of a dark green orb slowly came into view. "Wood spirit, orb," the phoenix spirit muttered before its pupils suddenly trembled. "A royal wood spirit orb?" The phoenix spirit stared on in shock as the jade green light turned white in no time. It was an incredibly pure and sacred light. When the light spread out and wrapped around Xianxia lightly, an unbelievable scene started happening right before their eyes. The dreadful cracks across Xianxia's body started healing visibly, and the process was so quick that even the phoenix spirit, with all its knowledge and experience, couldn't find it in itself to believe. So warm, Yun Wuxin's vision was filled with white light. Despite still feeling weak and powerless, she felt like she was lying on top of a cloud or bathing inside warm water. The light had even washed away the fear and anxiety residing inside her heart. The phoenix spirit's pupils contracted intensely. Soon, even its scarlet pupils were dyed pure white by the light that was shining from Xianxia's body. This is... The phoenix spirit's voice had never been as agitated or distorted as it was now. "Lord Li Xiu's divine miracle of life." The white light continued to shine brightly. The phoenix spirit could no longer see nor sense Xianxia's existence with its remaining power. It was witnessing not just the profound light energy that belonged only to the ancient creation goddess of life, but also a true miracle. Meanwhile, the battle at the profound sky southern sea was still going on. Lin Qingyu had clearly lost her mind after she was fully suppressed by Feng Zuer, and the outcome was even worse than before. She was losing even faster and more thoroughly than before. Feng Zuer very rarely took a life, but today her killing intent had reared its ugly head fully. If she couldn't kill this woman today, the consequences would be downright unimaginable. Boom! The phoenix flames devoured the purple flames again and slammed into Lin Qingyu, drawing a scream and sending the latter flying backward. Feng Zuer's eyes narrowed coldly, and she pointed a finger at Lin Qingyu and fired the Phoenix Ray. The Phoenix Ray was the 8th stage of power in the world ode of the Phoenix, and it condenses the user's energy into a high-powered beam that could burn through any space. Pooh! Lin Qingyu's protective aura had already been largely weakened in the first place, and the Phoenix Ray pierced through her body as easily as it would have penetrated a flimsy paper. As blood splattered through the air, Lin Qingyu screamed until it sounded like her throat was tearing itself apart. Feng Zuer moved, wanting to end this once and for all, but she suddenly stopped herself as a serious look overcame her features, then turned into shock. In the distant sky, the huge outline of a blue ship had suddenly entered a view. It was a profound arc, and both its speed and presence outstripped anything Feng Zuer had ever seen or heard of before. However, what truly terrified her was the 3 people that appeared beneath the profound arc afterwards. It was Lin Qingyu, Lin Qingshan, and their master. Lin Qingyu's appearance was already a gigantic shock to this world. But these 3 newcomers were clearly far stronger than Lin Qingyu. Feng Zuer felt like 3 giant mountains were holding her down and keeping her immobile, making even breathing an impossible task. This was especially true regarding the middle-aged man in the middle of the group. Feng Zuer was unable to determine what level of aura he was exuding, but one thing was certain: it was far, far bigger than even the sea beneath her feet. She had never seen an expert who amounted to even one bit of this person. Could it be that they were all denizens of that world? But why would those people come here one after another? What on earth is going on? Qingyu cried out, "Master, Master, you're finally here!" Feng Zuer's eyebrows sank yet again. Lin Qingyu's horrific appearance caught all 3 of her companions off guard. The woman was so desperate that she had even blocked out her burned outfit and her wounds temporarily from her mind, and pointed a finger at Feng Zuer. "It's her! It's that bitch! Tear her apart, quickly! Tear her apart, senior brother Qingshan!" Surprisingly, her hoarse cry didn't draw any attention from the trio. When Lin Qingyu turned around, she noticed that everyone, including her master, was staring straight at Feng Zuer. The look in their eyes, it was obvious that they were completely dumbfounded by Feng Zuer's beauty. In fact, they might not even have noticed her earlier cry. "Master!" Lin Qingyu gritted her teeth and cried again. Lin Jun finally returned to himself, but his eyes was still firmly affixed to Feng Zuer. He smiled. "I wasn't expecting this little planet to be hiding this many pleasant surprises. To think that someone is able to achieve the divine way in a plane as lowly and dirty as this." If someone were to pay attention to his hands right now, they would notice that his fingers were shaking non-stop. The God realm possessed the highest level aura in the entire primal chaos. It was why it had given birth to countless beauties and lady killers, including magnificent people like the dragon goddess or the lady goddess themselves. Feng Zuer was just a woman of a lowly plane, but her beauty had still stunned his several thousand years of life experiences. To him, this was an even bigger, pleasant surprise than her unusual power. "Why have you hurt my disciple, little girl?" Lin Jun asked with a smile. He had shot Lin Qingyu's wounds a look, but nothing more. There was a saying that goes, "Don't compare and no one is hurt." Before today, Lin Qingyu was a beautiful woman he quite liked to have around wherever he went. But now, she was literally a sight for sore eyes compared to this Feng Zuer. Feng Zuer clenched her fists in secret. The middle-aged man's terrifying aura indicated that he was someone she was no match against. So she exhaled slightly and forced herself to speak in an amiable tone. "Senior, this junior shares no grudge with your disciple whatsoever. In fact, this is the first day we met each other. However, she suddenly attacked and wounded a family member of mine." "Nonsense! You—" Lin Qingyu tried to fire back a retort, but Lin Jun stopped her with a raised hand and continued smilingly. "We master and disciple were only passing by this place by accident, and we have no wish to cause any trouble. I don't know why you were fighting my disciple, or who was right or who was wrong. Frankly, I'm too lazy to care. However, it is a fact that you've hurt my disciple rather badly, and as her master it is only right that I demand some compensation from you, don't you think?" Feng Zuer's eyes cooled as she stretched out her palm. "The two of you truly are master and disciple. You are all cut from the same skin. Very good, you want compensation, is it? Feel free to try and take it from me if you believe that you can take on my flame god realm." The group of four froze when they heard the words, "flame god realm." And in the next moment, Feng Zuer summoned her flames and caused the figure of a phoenix to appear behind her back, tearing the air with a shrill cry. Phoenix flame," Lin Jun exclaimed in shock as his expression changed drastically. What?" The two words were more than enough to stun Lin Qingyu, Lin Qingshan, and Lin Qingyu senseless. The phoenix flame was one of the three divine flames of the era of gods, and more importantly, it belonged only to the flame god realm. You're a member of the flame god realm?" Lin Jun's aloof and all-powerful attitude had vanished entirely. In fact, he was clearly stuttering a little. As profound practitioners of the fiery way, who hadn't heard of the flame god realm? Not to mention that the flame god realm was a pretty high-level middle star realm. If she was just a normal disciple of the flame god realm, there was at least some reason not to fear her. But the fact that she was able to ignite the phoenix flames proved that she belonged to the phoenix sect, a realm king sect in the flame god realm. There was no way they could provoke someone like her. "I am possible?" Lin Qingyu's eyes stretched wide. It looked like she finally understood why Feng Zuer's flames were as scary as they were. However, she refused to see the truth and shouted, "She is obviously a bitch of the lower realms. This is a small planet, and the people surrounding her just now were all lower realm mortals. There is no way she can be a member of the flame god realm." Lin Jun's expression wavered unsteadily. His disciple might not recognize the phoenix flames, but he wasn't her. He was absolutely certain that it was the phoenix flames. Lin Qingyu took a step forward and asked suddenly, "You claim to be a member of the flame god realm. In that case, what is your sect master's name?" Feng Zuer answered coldly, "My sect master's honored name is Yan Juhai." Her answer had frozen their faces yet again. Yun Qi had told them many things about the god realm while he was here. Although he had never talked about his important experiences, he did tell them about the god realm's profound realms, their basic structure, and so on. Feng Zuer possessed the phoenix flames, so of course he had told her about the phoenix sect at the flame god realm. "I've come here to experience the world under my master's orders, but you lot have interrupted me most rudely." Feng Zuer's tone grew colder and more imposing with each word. "Retreat immediately and never come to this place ever again, and I can pretend that today's transgression never happened. Or else I will report this to my master. My master is infamously bad-tempered, and I highly doubt any of you can bear the consequences." Feng Zuer had once heard from Yun Qi that the status quo in the god realm was strict and cruel. What this meant was that a lower star realm could only ever look up to a middle star realm and crawl beneath their presence. Therefore, a lower star realm elder wouldn't normally provoke a middle star realm disciple, even if they were older and more powerful, especially when said disciple hailed from a realm king sect. That was why she had come on so forcefully. "Or maybe you can try to silence me by killing me." Feng Zuer's smile was extraordinarily calm despite the very real threat. It was clear that she was informing them wordlessly that her sect had planted a soul crystal inside her. They would surely be exposed if they were to take this course of action. Master, is she really a member of the Flame God realm? Lin Qingyu asked. Not only was he picking his words carefully, he did not even dare look to at Feng Zuer as scrupulously as before. Almost all lower star realm denizens had the habit of bowing their heads before a middle star realm denizen. Lin Jun didn't answer him. His complexion looked very unhealthy. The Phoenix Flame was the Phoenix sect's signature power. It was an undeniable fact to all of the God realm. Moreover, after Yun Qi had pushed Luo Changsheng to the brink of defeat with the World Illuminator Red Lotus in the conferred God battle, the Phoenix Flame's reputation had practically skyrocketed overnight. That was why Lin Jun had to consider his hand very carefully when his opponent was a core disciple of a Middle Star Realm King sect. Forget him, even his sect master would have been faced with the exact same dilemma. At this point, killing Feng Zuer had become completely out of the option. After all, if the Phoenix sect really had planted a soul crystal inside her, the four of them would be earning the ire of the Phoenix sect, or even the entire Flame God realm itself. But if they were to let her go, and she decided that she would inform her sect about their transgressions after all, a different kind of disaster would befall them all the same. They wouldn't be able to rest easy for a long time to come. Therefore, their best course of action was to apologize to her and offer to make amends while the situation was still redeemable. They should be doing everything in their power to quell Feng Zuer's anger, even if it meant having Lin Qingyu kneel before the girl. That was the cruel rule and reality of inequality. But was that really how things were going to turn out? Feng Zuer had used to Phoenix Flame to disguise herself as a member of the Flame God realm, and it was a very smart plan. However, she was still too naive, and she had underestimated how low a human could go. Lin Jun was still hesitating, and Lin Qingyu and Lin Qingyu looked absolutely terrified. But Lin Qingyu narrowed his eyes before a smile rose to his face. Master, from what I can see, no one has tried to aid this Phoenix Fairy even though she fought junior sister Qingyu for quite some time. This likely means that she was alone when she came to this lower realm. Moreover, this planet is very far away from the Flame God realm, so there is no way a sound transmission can be delivered successfully. Feng Zuer. The tiny bits of fear lingering in Lin Jun's eyes swiftly turned into darkness as he shot his disciple a sideway glance. You are saying? What this disciple means is that we dare not kill someone as noble as our Phoenix Fairy as a matter of course, but will be put in an extremely disadvantageous situation if we let her go just like this. In that case, why don't you keep her by your side and cut off her connection to the Flame God realm forever? That'll solve our problem nicely, don't you think? This way, we wouldn't need to incur the wrath of the Flame God realm, leave behind any trails, or let such a wonderful beauty go to waste. This is a plan that gets us the best of both worlds, Lin Qingyu explained smilingly without forgetting to flatter his master in the end. I'm sure Master has already thought of all of this before me. Feng Zuer's heart turned completely cold. For a moment, she couldn't believe that her opponents could stoop this low. She smiled icily. How foolish! Do you think my master would have let me come alone considering my current cultivation? The only reason my master hasn't taken action is because I'm more than capable of dealing with that woman. She doesn't deserve my master's wrath at all. So, you really are going to defy the Flame God realm. Very well, come and attack me all you want. I pray for your sake that you can bear the consequences. If the same declaration and expression had come from Yun Qi, he would have been able to make them reconsider their decision. But Feng Zuer's life experience was too shallow, and she was never a good actor to begin with. She was never going to fool an old fox like Lin Jun, so her declaration had only worsened her situation. His fear was now completely swept away. Lin Jun laughed loudly before saying, "Hehe, in that case, don't mind if I do. Qingyu, take her down." Lin Jun narrowed his eyes. "Take care not to hurt her, you hear?" "Yes, master." Lin Jun's laugh had undoubtedly swept clean the anxiety that had been residing in their hearts. Lin Qingyu stepped forward as his eyes narrowed into dangerous, slimy slits. "Dear Phoenix Fairy, I don't know why you would stoop down to such a lowly place, but the lower realms aren't as safe as you think. Unfortunately for you, it seems that you've learned your lesson too late." Feng Zuer was at the 3rd level of the Divine Origin realm, and she was able to suppress the 5th level Lin Qingyu with the Phoenix bloodline and the World Ode of the Phoenix. However, there was no way she could fight against someone at the Divine Soul realm, let alone a Divine Spirit realm Lin Jun moreover. Lin Qingyu wasn't a fool. Despite knowing that there was no resistance in the world that Feng Zuer could possibly raise against him, he was wary that she might possess some sort of item or technique that would teleport her far away in an instant. She was a Middle Star Realm denizen after all. That was why he had opened his palm and pressured her with his divine soul profound strength the second he was finished speaking. His power hadn't even made it close to Feng Zuer, and already she could sense an impossibly powerful pressure that transcended all of her experiences. Her body turned stiff and cold. Feng Zuer realized in that moment that there was nothing she could do against this power no matter what. But Feng Zuer didn't surrender herself to her fate. Eyes burning with the scarlet flames of deathly determination, she was about to ignite every bit of Phoenix divine blood inside her body. Suddenly, a person appeared in front of Lin Qingyu like a ghost. In the next instant, the very sky itself had turned dark. Every voice in the world had vanished into nothing, and the coiling sea waves had suddenly came to a stop. The entire sea surface was terrifyingly still. Two fingers appeared around Lin Qingyu's wrist, and the profound energy he had just unleashed suddenly vanished like it had just been devoured by an invisible black hole. Aura, pressure, nothing. Everyone fell silent because their bodies suddenly felt 1,000,000 times heavier than before. Feng Zuer's attempt to burn her divine blood had also been stopped by force. When she looked up, she saw the back of a figure that made her feel like she was in a dream. "Bug brother, Yun," Feng Zuer called out quietly. She couldn't believe her own eyes. She could never mistake his back, not to mention that he was still wearing those tattered clothes filled with holes and blood. Her cry didn't draw any reaction from Yun Qi, however. As Feng Zuer's eyes grew more and more misty, she noticed the infinite fear that had suddenly spawned in the eyes of that unbelievably terrifying Lin Jun, Lin Qingru, Lin Qingshan, and Lin Qingyu. They looked like a devil was holding them by their throats. "You damn bugs!" The low, guttural voice sounded like it had come from hell itself. Every word had been uttered with enough strength to shatter one's teeth. Although this was the first time they met each other, Yun Qi looked like he couldn't even bear to share the same sky as them. He wouldn't be appeased even if he were to torment them for another 10 lifetimes. Slaughter, Lin Qingyu's pupils contracted. He wanted to wrest his hands free, but his arm and even his entire body had been bound in the air by an invisible force. No matter how much he struggled, he was not even able to move a single inch, and he could not even circulate a single thread of profound energy. His mouth parted slightly as it trembled, but no matter what, he could not make a single sound. The face right in front of him gave him a sense of familiarity, but he just could not remember who this person was, because he had practically lost all of his ability to think. It was as if his soul had been firmly pressed down under the claws of a gigantic arm, and he would never be able to escape. This was not only limited to him. The other 3 people, including his master, were also in this state. "Godchild Yun, no, it's not." In the end, Lin Jun still had profound strength at the divine spirit realm, so he was the only one who could still even think, the only one who could still forcefully croak out a sound. The person who had suddenly appeared in front of him looked extremely similar to the legendary Yun Qi. But Yun Qi had already died during the Star God Realm's evil infant calamity. This was something the entire God Realm knew, and it was also news that the eternal Heaven God Realm had sent out itself, so it was impossible for it to be false. Even if he had not died, it was also impossible for a person like him, a god child, to appear on such a lowly plane. Yun Qi's eyes were gloomy and dark. Ling Jun had lived for several millennia, but he had never once seen such a pair of terrifying eyes before. The gloomy darkness and hatred radiating from those eyes were like a bottomless and dark abyss. Every single thread of light that illuminated his eyes looked as if it desired to cut them into thousands of pieces and give them all an ignominious death. "Big brother Yun," Feng Zuer said excitedly, "you recovered your powers." He had clearly recovered all of his powers, yet she did not feel any of the joy that she should have felt radiating from his body. On the contrary, she felt a darkness and hatred that was extremely terrifying. It even caused her to feel fear. Upon hearing Feng Zuer's voice, a faint change appeared in Yun Qi's darkly illuminated eyes. He said in a low voice, "Zuer, turn around." Feng Zuer turned around and closed her eyes as instructed. "UWAH?" An extremely shrill and miserable cry rang in her ears the very moment she closed her beautiful eyes. What followed that cry was the most terrifying sound of bones breaking she had ever heard in her life. Every single part of Lin Qingyu's arm, The arm that was seized between Xianxia's fingers was completely and cruelly shattered in a single instant, from the flesh to the blood vessels, to the meridians, and even to the bones. His arm was completely shattered, but it had not been severed. His arm hung bloody and limp, and every single instant, a pain that a normal person could not fathom was exploding from it. Lin Qingyu's complexion was as pale as a ghost's. Bloody foam burst out from his throat due to his far too shrill cry of misery. In this moment, he truly understood what hell was. Moreover, the expression of Xianxia, who was standing right in front of him, still remained boundlessly dark. His fingers slowly stretched forward and reached towards his other arm. A-H-H-H-H-H-U-W-A-H-H-H. This time, Lin Qingyu's cry of misery ripped open his throat. His other arm had been forcefully ripped from his body. A-H-H-H-H-H-H-S-S-S-A-H-H-H-H-H. Yuwa, W-A-H-H-H-H. Boundless pain engulfed every bit of Lin Qingyu's consciousness. It was as if he was an evil spirit that had been thrown into purgatorial furnace to burn as he let out the most shrill and miserable screams in this world. Behind him, Lin Jun, Lin Qingshan, and Lin Qingru stared at him with eyes so wide that they nearly burst from their sockets. Their complexions were so pale that their faces were completely bloodless. Every single strand of hair on their bodies and every single muscle in their bodies were shivering and contracting in fear. Poo-woo-woo. The arm that had been ripped from Lin Qingyu's body was fiercely shoved into his chest, causing a large spray of bloody mist to erupt into the air. With a single tap of Xianxia's finger, his broken body fell from the sky while spraying blood, and a miserable cry that seemed to come from the Yellow Springs purgatory itself tore at their trembling hearts and souls. After his body flashed in the air, Xianxia appeared in front of Lin Jun. Upon meeting Xianxia's dark and gloomy eyes, Lin Jun's body contorted and spasmed as he spoke in a voice that quavered so much that it was hard to make out. Spare my life. Fear and despair would cause people to collapse, and in fact it could also cause a person to go crazy. He begged in the most pathetic manner he had ever begged in his life. But after that, he suddenly launched his body forward and blasted out his despairing power at Xianxia. With his cultivation at the divine spirit realm, he could indeed move about however he pleased in a lower star realm. In his life, he had very rarely met people that he could not offend, much less a hopeless situation such as this. Xianxia's profound veins had just reawakened, so he had only recovered a bit of his profound strength, and it was also the same for his body. However, his level was far too superior to Ling Jun's level. Even a divine king on the brink of death was still a divine king. Besides, his strength at the divine king realm was no less than others that reached the divine sovereign realm. Xianxia simply made a grabbing motion with his hand, and the energy that Ling Jun had not even fully unleashed, yet was completely dispersed. His skull also exploded at the same time, causing bits of red and white to scatter everywhere. Bang! With yet another explosion, his headless body exploded in midair, raining down a large amount of sickly-smelling blood on the sea region below them. Xianxia's gaze swiveled towards Lin Qingshan. In that instant, Lin Qingshan's entire body spasmed before going as limp as mud. Both his eyes were fully widened, yet his eyes were completely blank. His mouth gaped open, yet only a hoarse screech that sounded like sandpaper rubbing together came from his throat. A large pool of dirty water was spreading on his lower body, and he could not stop it no matter what. R.I.P. His body was instantly torn into 2 pieces. R.I.P. In another instant, those 2 pieces were torn into 4, into 8, into 16 pieces, until the air was filled with flying blood and scattered flesh, which then rained down on the sea region below them in a shower of bright red blood. Lin Qingru's body was trembling like a piece of duckweed caught in a hurricane. Her mind had finally completely collapsed, and her eyes suddenly rolled to the back of her head as she had actually fainted dead away from fright. To the current Lin Qingru, fainting meant release. However, her relief only lasted for less than half a breath. Bang! Following a light tap of Xianxia's finger, a cruel explosion rang within the bloody mist as her right arm exploded. H. She was jolted awake from her nightmare as another shriek that sounded like it came an evil ghost ripped from her throat, and her entire body crazily writhed and spasmed. Xianxia was very rarely willing to fight against women, and he was even less unwilling to use cruel methods against a woman. But at this moment, there was not a single shred of pity or unwillingness in his eyes. In fact, the only things that existed in those eyes were a bone-deep hatred and darkness. Bang! Her left arm exploded, sending fragments of flesh and bone flying into the sky. Bang, her left leg exploded. Bang, her right leg exploded. All four limbs had vanished from Lin Qingyu's body, and ghastly geysers of blood wildly sprayed from those four bloody stumps. Feng Zuer kept her eyes tightly closed, her body faintly trembling. The sounds of flesh exploding, the sounds of blood wildly gushing, and the sounds of miserable cries that were far too shrill and anguished kept ringing in her ears, causing her heart and soul to shake uncontrollably. The Yun Qi she was familiar with had always been a merciful and compassionate person. If not, he would not have let off Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace all those years ago. But she did not know just why Yun Qi was so enraged. Lin Qingyu's broken body fell into the sea below them. The sea region remained dreadfully calm and still, and even the traces of blood that had been scattered on its surface had not been washed away. Feng Zuer turned around and looked at the Yun Qi, who was radiating an extremely terrifying aura. She slowly walked forward and softly hugged him. "Big brother Yun, what's wrong?" His profound strength had been restored. This was a huge surprise that was just like a dream, yet she could not detect a single shred of joy in his body. She could only sense an extremely terrifying hatred. Yun Qi's chest heaved up and down in an incomparably violent fashion. He did not respond at all to Feng Zuer's words, his still dark eyes staring at the bloody sea below him. All of a sudden, his entire body started to shake as his gaze turned frenzied. His expression also grew gradually more sinister before a wild bestial scream ripped from his throat. With a great roar, he sent his palm smashing downward. Boom! Towering tidal waves erupted simultaneously over thousands of kilometers of ocean. In this moment, the sky and the sea seemed to have been turned completely upside down. The sea covered the sky before falling down again, wantonly pouring down on Yun Qi and Feng Zuer's bodies. After a long time, the entire sea had finally fallen down from the sky, but it was no longer calm and still. There were violently surging waves everywhere, and the waters continued to roil and turn for a long time. Feng Zuer's entire body was drenched, but she hugged Yun Qi even tighter. "Big brother Yun, just what exactly has happened? Tell me." After being drenched by the icy cold seawater, Yun Qi's mind finally cleared up a little. He turned around to look at Feng Zuer, the corner of his mouth faintly twitching. It looked as if he wanted to give her a comforting smile, but no matter how hard he tried, he was simply unable to do so. "I'm fine. Zuer, are you hurt?" Feng Zuer softly shook her head, her fluttering phoenix eyes filled with worry. "It's fine now, it's fine," Yun Qi said in a low and dispirited voice. "Let's go back." Yes, his evil god's profound veins had been awakened. They had been miraculously awakened. It was truly a dreamlike miracle, a miracle that Yun Qi had originally not even dared to hope for. He should have been filled with wild joy. He should have been so ecstatic that every single one of his cells would be burning up. But he could not smile right now, because he knew he had clearly witnessed the price that had been paid to awaken his profound veins. Lin Jun and his 4 disciples were dead, and each of them had suffered a more miserable death at his hands than the last. Yet, it did not make him feel the least bit satisfied or happy. If he retained even a little bit of rationality, he would have used the profound handle soul search on them before he killed them in order to find out what purpose they had in even coming to such a place. And from there, he would have also found out that Jasmine was still alive. But when he faced these 4 chief culprits, all of his rationality and reason seemed to have been devoured by a devilish hate. The only thought that consumed his mind was that he would kill them in the most cruel ways possible. Kill, kill. Floating Cloud City, Xiao family. The courtyard where Yun Qi had lived in until he was 16 was exceptionally quiet at this moment. The courtyard door was pushed open, and Su Linger and Feng Zuer strode out of it. Upon hearing the tale from start to finish, their hearts were filled with melancholy. They exchanged wordless glances as they both did not know how to console Yun Qi at this moment. Inside the room, Yun Wuxin lay on the bed unmoving, her milk-white face pale and sickly. She quietly slept, and she had already slept for a very long time, and not even a single trace of the impressive, profound energy, which had once caused everyone who saw her to gasp in shocked admiration, could be detected from her body. Even her breathing in her sleep was exceptionally weak. Yun Qi sat at the side of the bed, his hand grasping his forehead. His clawed fingers fiercely dug into his flesh, and it was as if he wanted to squeeze his skull until it shattered. His profound veins had just been rewoken, so the very first thing he should have done was to go into seclusion and allow his profound strength divine body, and divine senses to reawaken and recover as well. But he was bereft of all joy, and he did not have the mood to do so. In fact, he could not even be bothered to try to figure out how his profound veins had been awakened by Yun Wuxin's evil god divine aura. To a father, what was the most sorrowful and unforgivable thing in this world? Today, he finally knew exactly what that answer was. Qi would always feel boundless love along with boundless guilt. However, within this guilt, there was something that had always comforted him, and that was the fact that Yun Wuxin had inherited a small part of his evil god divine power, and as a result, she possessed an innate talent towards the profound way that was extremely impressive, a talent that far outstripped anyone's understanding. At the age of 12, she had already become an overlord on this lowly plane, and her future was undoubtedly incomparably bright. Before too long, she would definitely surpass Feng Zuer and cause the legend that he had created to reappear once more. This was not only a form of consolation, it was also something he took great pride in as her father. But today, the extremely fortunate thing was that even though Yun Wuxin's profound strength had completely dissipated, her profound veins did not receive any harm. Or perhaps even if they had been harmed, they had not been completely destroyed, so the current Yun Qi could also repair them. Even though she had lost her profound strength, she could cultivate it once more. But the innate talent she had that was enough to allow her to stare down at the rest of the world was gone. It was gone forever. His long-dormant evil god's profound veins had been awakened. His profound strength, divine body, divine soul, and divine sense were recovering with every second that passed. But the price for everything had been his daughter's future. If he was able to give everything back to her, even if he would be crippled forever, he would definitely not hesitate in the slightest. Yet it just so happened that this was the one thing that he was unable to do. His entire body was trembling as his heart convulsed and spasmed. His heart and soul had been thrown into complete and utter chaos, and his gradually contorted fingers had gripped his skull until it had started to faintly change shape. Yet he did not notice anything. He did not even notice that Yun Wuxin had woken up. He did not notice her lightly opened eyes. "Daddy," Yun Wuxin lightly called out to her father as she looked at him. It was just that she was far too delicate and frail right now, so her voice was also as soft as cotton. Yun Qi's entire body convulsed as his head jerked up. The moment his eyes met Yun Wuxin's eyes which were as hazy as mist, he hurriedly sprang forward and using all the gentleness he could muster, he spoke in a still hoarse voice. "Zinner, you've woken up, are you hungry right now? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Yun Wuxin shook her head very lightly. "Daddy, why are you crying?" "Eh?" It was only when he heard Yun Wuxin's words that Yun Qi felt the icy cold traces of wetness on his face. He hurriedly extended a hand and wiped those traces of wetness away in a fluster as a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm not. How can it be possible for your daddy to cry? It's just that. Before he could even finish speaking, he had actually started choking up. No matter how hard he tried to control it or suppress it, he could not stop himself from choking up in tears. He turned his head away, his body and voice still trembling. He tried his hardest to regulate his emotions, yet he was simply unable to force himself to calm down. He could only speak in a pained voice. "Zinner, why did you have to?" "Daddy," Yun Wuxin cut off the words that he had just said, an incomparably pure and beautiful smile spreading out on her pale white face. "You were so weak before, you didn't make me feel secure at all. But from now on, I can finally be protected by Daddy as much as I want. He. His heart, and even his entire soul, had been filled up with something that was far too warm. It was only after a long while that he could speak with much difficulty. "Daddy will protect you for the rest of his life. If anyone dares to harm you, I will definitely." He did not continue speaking, nor could he continue even if he wanted to. "MNN," Yun Wuxin responded with a lot of vigor. She had clearly just lost all of her profound strength and innate talent, yet her face was filled with happiness and satisfaction. "Then Daddy needs to first protect himself well. I've clearly just woken up, but I'm already feeling a little tired. Daddy looks really tired as well. Why don't you also go to sleep, okay?" Yun Qi's face was extremely pale and haggard. Only, Yun Wuxin did not know that the level of her father's power was very high, so he no longer needed to sleep. "All right," Yun Qi gave a soft nod of his head. Yun Wuxin's lips curved up softly and her eyes closed heavily. She tried to fight the feeling, but her overly weak and frail body was unable to resist the sleepiness she felt. With a slight tremble of her eyelashes, she once again fell asleep. Xianxia breathed a sigh of relief, but his chest heaved in an incomparably violent fashion. As he silently stared at Yun Wuxin, he slowly stretched out a hand towards her sleeping face. Just when he was about to touch it, however, his hand froze before suddenly jerking backwards. This hand of his had been stained with countless sins, had touched an endless amount of darkness, had been dyed by an ocean of blood, and it had even personally robbed the innate talent of his very own daughter. He withdrew his arm before soundlessly standing up and walking out of the room. His eyes were murky and muddled. Upon opening the door of the room, he realized that the sky had already gone dark at some unspecified point in time. Feng Xian'er stood in the corner of the courtyard. Tears filled her beautiful eyes, and the rims of those eyes were completely red. Upon seeing Xianxia, she hurriedly wiped the tears from her face and moved towards him, but her steps were extremely timid and overcautious. "Young master, Feng Xian'er's head dipped. She did not dare look Xianxia in the eye. There's no need to say anything. Xianxia did not even look at her. His eyes were dazed and his voice was powerless. "It wasn't your fault." Xianxia's emotionless voice threw Feng Xian'er's heart into an even greater panic. "I really did not know the Lord Phoenix God would. You should leave." Xianxia's face was expressionless, and he did not even spare her a look from beginning to end. "Return to the place where you belong." Feng Xian'er was stunned by those words, and the tears she had been bitterly holding back now fell from her face like drops of rain. "Young master, do not chase me away. Let me take care of Zinner, please. Go." Xianxia closed his eyes. Feng Xian'er's body swayed and tears gushed out of her eyes. She pressed a hand forcefully against her mouth so that her sobs would not spill out. With eyes that had been completely blurred by her tears, she dazedly stared at Xianxia's back for a long while before she finally turned around and left. Under the night sky, sparkling and translucent tears sprinkled down like little stars. Xianxia raised his head and looked towards the full moon in the sky. The moonlight today was exceptionally dim, and it was as if the moon had been covered up by a layer of gray clouds. The night wind was also unusually cold, and even though it was clearly only a light and gentle breeze, it sank right into the marrow of his bones. He stared at the night sky without moving for a very long time, as if he had turned into a statue. A figure strode over and silently stood by his side. She was dressed in snowy robes, and under the moonlight, she looked like a celestial maiden descending upon the mortal world, causing the entire night sky to seem a lot brighter. "Little fairy," Xianxia spoke in a dazed voice, but he did not turn his head. "Tell me, am I the most useless father in this world? Am I the biggest failure of a father in this world?" Chu Yuechen looked at him as she softly nodded her head and said, "Yes." Xianxia slowly closed his eyes. "All those years ago, when Zinner was still in my womb, I was viciously ambushed and I nearly lost my life," Chu Yuechen softly said. "At that time, you did not protect her, nor were you by our side. In fact, you were not even aware of what had happened. When she was born, I nearly lost my life. Not only did you not witness her birth, you also very nearly allowed her to become an orphan from the very start of her life." Xianxia's body shuddered fiercely. "For 11 years, she and I lived in a place secluded from the rest of the world. She accompanied me and protected me. Meanwhile, her father's power and status grew day by day, yet he had never accompanied her or protected her for a single moment. You made her life more lonely and incomplete than any other girl. But after you reunited with her, she never felt any of the resentment or dissatisfaction that she should have felt towards you. On the contrary, she only grew closer to you. When you were heavily injured, she was willing to sacrifice her innate talent for you without any hesitation whatsoever, even if she would be reduced to someone ordinary for the rest of her life." Xianxia's body swayed in the night breeze. The light in Chu Yuechen's eyes turned exceptionally soft and tender. "Zinner is a good daughter. She is our pride and joy. But you have not been a good father. Perhaps it is just as you said, you are the most useless father in this world, the biggest failure of a father in this world." She turned around to look at him, and the light in her eyes was even more lustrous than bright moonlight. "So, are you going to use self-recrimination and guilt to console yourself? Or are you going to be an even better and stronger father than before so that you can protect her and make it up to her?" His disordered and confused soul was struck by a gentle, yet heavy blow. Xianxia's trembling and swaying body went rigid. After withdrawing her gaze, Chu Yuechen turned around and slowly left. But after she had taken a few steps, her feet suddenly ground to a halt and she softly said, "Just now I saw Xian'er leave and she was weeping. You should understand that she was the most helpless and innocent person in this entire affair." In the past year or so, all of us have seen the sincere feelings that she has had for you. Yet she's never once expressed them, and she has never once hoped to get a reply from you. She put all of the responsibility of what happened to Zinner on herself, so she was already in unbearable agony. But not only did you not comfort her, you even vented all of your sorrow and resentment on this most innocent girl, a girl who was already filled with boundless self-recrimination. You are also a father, but have you ever thought of this? How would her father feel if he knew that his daughter had been treated in such a manner? Xianxia. Chu Yuechen left, but Xianxia still stood rooted there in a daze. He did not speak or move for a very long time, and even his expression did not change at all from start to finish. The only things that were moving were his eyes that were flashing with incomparable chaos under the moonlight, the parting words that Jasmine had said to him in the star god realm. The decision that Lin Qingyu had made to leave and sever all ties with him after sending him to the forbidden land of Samsara, the words that Xianxia had told him time and again, were now all floating up in his head and interweaving chaotically. You possess the only creation god divine power in this universe, and you possess an innate talent and luck that they would not even dare to dream of in 10 lifetimes. You are the person who is most qualified to have ambition in this universe. Yet why is your very first reaction to return to the lower realms? Time soundlessly flowed by, and before he knew it, the layer of dark clouds that had obscured the bright moon had quietly disappeared. As the chaos in his heart was gradually quelled, his gaze slowly became clear and bright. Gradually, even the night wind was no longer cold, and the moonlight that splayed down from the night sky was warm and tranquil. "Thank you, little fairy," Xianxia softly muttered under his breath, the corner of his mouth hooking up into a very small smile. He raised his hand and stared at his palm, following the automatic recovery of his divine body. He could already once again begin to sense the intimacy between his body and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This also meant that the power of the rage god was also beginning to gradually awaken. His fist clenched and his grip grew tighter and tighter. His body overflowed not only with new power, but it also with an everlasting responsibility and new lease on life. "Zinner," he softly muttered in his heart, "my current power was born because of you, so this is not only my power, it is also your power. For you, for all the people important to us, in order to never lose anything else or have any more regrets, I will tightly hold onto the power that I have right now. I will make it stronger. I will make myself into the strongest man in the universe, so that no one in this universe can mistreat any of you in the slightest. No matter how hard it will be, no matter how long it takes, whether it be the lower realms or the god realm." The determination that arose in his heart did not burden it. On the contrary, he felt as if he had suddenly seen the light. It was a strange and wonderful feeling. There had been countless times in his life where he had been tripped up by his emotions. Every step he took brought along with it many attachments, and these attachments just kept on growing. At first, his world had only consisted of the profound sky continent, but after that, he went to the illusory demon realm and the azure cloud continent. Then, in order to chase after Jasmine, he had entered the god realm. To this, he had no choice but to leave behind all of the people at his side, and while he was in the god realm, he had very nearly been unable to return. During this entire process, he had been hesitant, perplexed, restrained, lost, and at his wits' end far too many times. This was because there were far too many people who could easily take hold of his destiny. He had no choice but to constantly adapt and obey, had no choice but to play by the rules that they had created, had no choice but to tiptoe around those forces which he could not even begin to resist while trembling in fear. It was just like that 1 year he had spent in the forbidden land of Samsara. He had no choice but to hide in that place. He could not enter the eternal heaven-divine realm, he could not return to the snow-song realm, and it was even less of a possibility for him to return to the lower realms. If that is the case, then why can't I be the one who determines the laws of this universe? Instead, shouldn't everyone else adapt to the rules that I create? During the time he had spent in the forbidden land of Samsara, Xianxia had kept using various different methods to remind me of this very thing. She kept telling me that I was the most qualified person to speak of and do such things. Furthermore, even if I did not want to and I was not willing to, fate kept forcing me toward this path time and again. Since this is the case, Xianxia's tightly clenched left hand suddenly shone with a flash of dark green light at this very moment. Xianxia, whose mind was tossing and turning, instantly detected it. His head jerked downward as his heart started to violently shake. Just as he was about to try to send his consciousness into the sky poison pearl, an absolutely beautiful girl slowly appeared in front of him. She had long viridian hair and emerald green eyes which were filled with the most translucent and pure tears in the world. Ling, Xianxia softly breathed. He suddenly felt like it had been a lifetime since he last saw her. "Master!" Ling cried out, tears filling her eyes. She lunged forward and barreled into Xianxia's body, her arms tightly hugging him. Her slender shoulders continuously shook with overwrought emotions and a lingering fear as she said, "I finally, woo. I had thought that I would never woo. Ling sobbed uncontrollably into his chest, and for a long period of time she wept so hard that she was unable to speak. During this past year and a half, she had spent every breath living in fear and darkness. Furthermore, it seemed to be fear and darkness that would never come to an end. At this time, she had finally seen the light of day once more, and it felt like a dream. Xianxia's arms froze in the air before they softly encircled her sobbing and trembling body and drew her into a tight embrace. After that, he softly spoke. "As long as you're okay, everything is fine. I had actually thought that. I had already dragged you to your death with me, so everything is fine as long as you're okay." Ling's sobs continued for a very long period of time. If not for the fact that only Xianxia could hear her voice, the entire Xiao family would have long since been startled and alarmed by it. It was only after tears drenched her entire face that the wood spirit girl managed to vent some of her fear and emotion. She sniffled as she wiped away her tears, and she did not dare to lift her head to look at Xianxia for a very long time. "Ling, have you been asleep this whole time?" Xianxia gently asked. He had originally thought that Ling had fallen along with him when he had died in the star god realm. But following the recovery of his powers, he could once again sense the existence of the sky poison pearl, and now he had even met Ling again. To him, this was undoubtedly far too much of a pleasant surprise. Ling's eyes were red as she gently shook her head. "Actually, I've been awake this whole time, and I've been by Master's side, watching Master every single day." "Eh?" Xianxia was stunned by those words. But it was as if I was trapped in an invisible cage. Even though I could see Master and see the outside world, I could not materialize myself, connect with Master's soul, or get Master to hear my voice. "Xianxia, I thought that it would be like this forever, and I felt so scared every single day." Once she said this, Ling could not help but start sobbing again. From the moment she had decided to give up everything and become Xianxia's sky poison spirit, she had been destined to follow Xianxia for the rest of her existence, and she would leave and die together with him. Her world would consist of only herself and Xianxia from now on. So Xianxia's rebirth meant that she no longer had to remain alone forever in her world. Xianxia stretched out a hand and lightly patted her shoulder as he comforted her. "That's all in the past. You won't need to be afraid from now on." She had been fully conscious, yet she had been trapped in a prison she could never escape from. This had undoubtedly been far more cruel than simply falling into a deep sleep. As he looked at this wood spirit girl who had entrusted everything to him, this wood spirit girl who he had completely failed, a deep feeling of guilt and pain arose in Xianxia's heart. Wait a minute, she could always see him in the outside world? Amen. Ling nodded her head as she strove to smile through her tears. "Congratulations, Master, on your recovery." As she spoke, she suddenly realized that Xianxia's expression was rather weird. After that, she realized that he must still be very worried about Wuxin, and she immediately said, "Master, I know that your emotions have been thrown into a great chaos today because of the young mistress. However, you no longer need to worry. Have you forgotten the divine waters of life and the dragon dawn jade nectars that Mistress Xianxia gave to us?" Ling's words caused Xianxia's expression to freeze on his face. After that, he instantly leapt in the air as if his backside had been pricked by a needle, and his hand grabbed her shoulders with a whooshing sound. Hurry up and give it to me." It was only when those words were said that he remembered that all of these things were in the sky poison pearl, and that he could retrieve them at will. After that, he suddenly let go of Ling's shoulders and directly retrieved a divine water of life from the sky poison pearl before rushing in the room. "Ah, Master!" Ling hurriedly stretched out a hand to grab him. Right now you're going to use it on the young mistress." "Of course," Xianxia said in an impatient and eager voice. Wuxin had lost all of her profound strength, and her vitality had been heavily wounded, so he naturally did not want to waste even half a breath more. But Ling still held him back. "Even though the divine water of life can immediately restore the young mistress' health, Its effects would only be maximized if Master were to use light, profound energy to bolster it at the same time, allowing the young mistress to reach the divine way in the span of a day. Furthermore, Master's strength isn't fully recovered yet. If you were to use it right away, you would waste a large portion of its spiritual strength. Yun Qi's body ground to a halt. He scratched his scalp before loudly exhaling. Right, my powers haven't completely recovered yet. Hugh, my brain really did stop working back there. He had been alternately enraged, extremely guilty, and resentful for most of the day. He had lost his sanity several times today, and his brain was practically a mess. I need to focus all of my effort on restoring my profound strength as soon as possible, Yun Qi said as he strove to calm his emotions. After he thought about it for a while, he asked He Ling, "How many divine waters of life and dragon dawn jade nectars do we have altogether?" "We have 17 drops of divine water of life, and we have 91 drops of dragon dawn jade nectar," He Ling answered precisely. "Amen," Yun Qi replied as he nodded his head. The dragon dawn jade nectar would cleanse and strengthen one's body and profound veins, causing a profound practitioner to undergo a complete rebirth. It provided a huge boost to one's cultivation of the profound way, a boost that a normal person would not even be able to imagine. In simple terms, it would greatly strengthen a person's body, lifespan, and aptitude in the profound way in the span of a single day. As for the divine water of life, a single drop of it could allow the Yun Wuxin, who currently no longer had any profound strength, to step into the divine way in a single day. He was not exaggerating its effects in the slightest. To a profound practitioner from the lower realms, hearing these words would undoubtedly sound like a fairy tale. But among the countless profound spiritual medicines in the vast God realm, just based on medicinal strength alone, how many of them were strong enough to allow a mortal to reach the divine way? Not only were there quite a few of these spiritual medicines in existence, there were even many of them whose medicinal strength was higher than that of the divine water of life. Just like the universe penta-jade pellet Yun Qi had swallowed back then. But that was simply based on medicinal strength alone. But this sort of profound spiritual medicine could never be used on a profound practitioner who had yet to enter the divine way, and it could definitely not be used on a mortal who did not have any profound strength at all. Because if they swallowed these medicines, even if there was a divine master, no, even if the great firmament golden deity himself were present to assist, that person would still instantly explode and die. Even given how abnormal Yun Qi's physique had been, when he had forcefully swallowed the universe penta-jade pellet in order to increase his power, he might have very well exploded and died if not for Mu Xunian. However, the divine water of life and dragon dawn jade nectar given to him by Shen Zai, the greatest advantage they had was that they did not have any side effects whatsoever. The medicinal strength of these two spiritual medicines was so mild and gentle that no one could understand it. This was because this kind of spiritual liquid came from the strange flowers that grew in the forbidden land of Samsara. Furthermore, it was refined and created by Shenzai, the only person in the universe who possessed light profound energy, using the divine miracle of life. Light profound energy was sacred, compassionate, redemptive, and pure as a result. The medicines created by it would only ever bestow blessings upon the living creatures who used them. They would never ever cause any kind of harm, even if they were consumed by a mere mortal. People from the lower planes of existence, naturally, did not have the qualifications to know about the existence of such a spiritual liquid. But the upper star realms and the king realms would naturally know that the most mystical and highest grade profound spiritual medicine would come from the dragon god realm's forbidden land of Samsara. Whether it was the divine water of life or the dragon dawn jade nectar, they were considered true sacred objects even amongst the king realms. They were items that the god emperors yearned for even in their dreams. In the past, Shenzai would bestow such spiritual liquids to the dragon god clan every once in a while. Every drop was regarded by the dragon god clan as their most valuable treasure. And it was only when a king realm was organizing some big event or holding some big ceremony that they might occasionally bestow one of these drops upon said king realm, of course. They would only bestow these presents upon a king realm, and if any of the king realms were fortunate enough to receive one, they would undoubtedly go wild with joy. A single drop of divine water of life could allow a supremely talented individual to start at the divine way in the matter of a single day. What sort of concept was this? A single drop of dragon dawn jade nectar would raise all of the aptitudes of a profound practitioner in a single day. Every drop could create what was akin to a divine miracle. Even for someone at Xianxia's level, the divine water of life was still very beneficial. In fact, in regards to his feat of becoming a divine king within a single short year during his stay in the forbidden land of Samsara, most of the credit for that would go to the divine waters of life. If the dragon god realm knew that Xianxia alone had consumed 12 whole drops of the divine waters of life in the span of a single year, they would probably hate that they could not swallow Xianxia right up. This was because Xianxia only gave the dragon god clan approximately 10 drops of divine water of life, and 20 drops of dragon dawn jade nectar every 3,000 years or so. But Xianxia was actually unaware of all of these things, and he even subconsciously thought that these were things that could be easily obtained within the forbidden land of Samsara. He also did not know that the 17 drops of divine water of life and the 91 drops of dragon dawn jade nectar Xianxia had given to He Ling had been all that she had. Not a single drop of it was left. Upon realizing that he could immediately restore Yun Wuxin's profound strength, and that he could raise it to 100 times higher than what it used to be, and upon realizing that she could maybe stand shoulder to shoulder or even surpass Feng Zuer, Xianxia found it hard to suppress the excitement in his heart. Even though the lost evil god innate talent could not be restored, at the very least, he could lessen some of the guilt in his heart. He had to recover all of his power as quickly as possible. Those words echoed in Xianxia's heart. After that, he looked at He Ling before suddenly saying, "He Ling, after I recover my power, I will find an opportunity to return to the God realm, and I will definitely fulfill the promise that I made to you back then." Ah! Xianxia's words left He Ling completely stunned. After that, she shook her head in startled fright. "Master, what are you saying? You want to return to the God realm?" "That's right," Xianxia said with a very serious nod of his head. "No, there's no need. There's no need, there's no need." He Ling waved her hands, and she was waving them very frantically at that. "Master, it took a lot of effort for you to return here, and in this world you have your family, your friends, and your wives. Your daughter is also at your side, and you can live very, very well without any worries or cares. You don't need to return for my sake. You really don't need to go back to that dangerous place for my sake." "Ha ha!" Xianxia gave a laugh as he looked at He Ling's appearance, but he felt deeply moved by what she had said. "I am not doing it just for you, I am also doing it for myself. Furthermore, I have no choice but to return." As he said those words, he lifted his head and stared at the night sky. Why? He Ling asked softly as she found his answer hard to understand. In this world, his life was truly perfect, and now that he had begun to recover his strength, even if people from the God realm somehow stumbled onto this place, they would not be any cause for concern. So why did he suddenly say, in such a sincere manner at that he wanted to return to the God realm? Qi started slowly. His eyes turned deep as his mind turned calm. "If you had had the opportunity to witness my whole life, you would realize that I'm like a walking disaster. No matter where I go, obstacles and disasters always trail my footsteps unendingly." He Ling, even after I'd experienced a death and lost all of my powers, disaster still wouldn't stop knocking on my door. This all began when I first received the evil god's inheritance when I was 16, Xianxia said honestly. For the past few years, every divine spirit that had given me their divine powers has reminded me more than once that the evil god's power wasn't the only thing I inherited, that I had inherited the mission he left behind as well. In other words, I had obtained a power that is unlike anything else in the world, but in exchange, I must bear a responsibility that is equal to that power as well. He Ling couldn't understand what he was saying. Although I memorized everything they said, I had never really treated them seriously in my subconscious. In fact, I had even thought their comments to be a little ridiculous. Xianxia asked me a question back when I first arrived at the forbidden land of Samsara. If I can fulfill a wish right away, what would that be? At the time, my answer had disappointed her greatly, and she spent the entire year trying to tell me through various ways that I, bearer of the one and only creation God power in the entire world, must use it to surpass all other living things. To that end, she had even stressed Senior Dragon Monarch's adoration of her and asked me to surpass him as well. "Master, have you understood Master Xianxia's words then?" He Ling asked softly. "No," Xianxia shook his head in reply, "but I have found my reason, and I have fully figured out everything I wanted to figure out. Power is such an important thing in life." Xianxia's eyes turned dark and unreadable. "Without power, I can't protect myself or anyone around me. Without power, even a couple of worms who weren't worthy of being my opponents since back then could drive me into a dead end, and even bring harm to Zinner, few. He exhaled deeply after saying that. Xianxia clenched his teeth slightly and frowned a little when he recalled those 4 profound practitioners. Now that he had calmed down, he suddenly realized that he had no idea what they were called, where they came from, or how they came to be Blue Pole Star at all. It was bad enough that he hadn't searched their souls with the profound handle soul search, but he hadn't even checked if a soul crystal was embedded in their minds. Thankfully, he hadn't detected any unusual soul activity when they died, or the resulting consequences could only be described as severe. As far as he could recall, this was the first time he had lost control of himself so thoroughly. The powers I possess are simply too special. Not only do countless people desire them, their very existence is a source of unpredictable tribulations of fate. Therefore, the only way to prevent all this from happening again is to become the one who stands at the top of the world, the one who dictates all of the rules, just like how I stood at the top of this continent back then. The only difference is that this time, I must stand at the top of the God realm as well. Xianxia smiled when he saw He Ling's shaking pupils. This may just be a delusion to another person, but to me, it is something that's within my reach. And I must reach it. I never want to suffer what I had to suffer today ever again. That alone is all the reason I need. Then, are you going to head back to the God realm and cultivate at Master Xianxia's place? He Ling asked. It was because Xianxia's place was safe, and she was the fastest way for Xianxia to achieve his goal in her opinion. No, but Xianxia shook her head yet again. The reason I have to go back is because I must complete the mission that came with my power. Mission? What mission? He Ling asked. Although I only have an inkling about the truth right now, I'm sure someone will tell me about it when I return to the Eastern Divine region. The Ice Phoenix girl at the bottom of the heavenly Netherfrost lake flashed across Xianxia's mind before he looked eastward. In the distant east, the red starlight flashing in the distant sky was more glaring than everything else around it. Some time ago, it was just a flash that occasionally appeared in the sky, but now it was a permanent fixture in the sky, be it day or night. There is one more thing that I must inform you of, Xianxia continued as his eyes turned a little misty. Zinner wasn't the only one who played a part in restoring my strength. He Lin helped as well. Ah, He Ling froze. You mean Linner? The Phoenix spirit tried to use the evil god divine aura residing inside Zinner's profound veins to awaken my dead evil god profound veins, but it had failed despite a successful operation. So the evil god divine aura didn't awaken my profound veins, but it awoke the royal wood spirit orb that He Lin gave me. He Ling's lips parted as her pupils' eyes trembled violently. The wood spirit race is the creation of the ancient creation goddess of life, Li Xiu, and the life energy residing inside a royal wood spirit orb originated from profound light energy. When its life energy was unleashed, it echoed with my divine miracle of life and caused it to become active. The divine miracle of life is precisely why my profound veins reawakened. The Phoenix spirit once said that the evil god's profound veins were the profound veins of a creation god. It was such a high-level existence that the only thing that could awaken them was another power at an equal level. And by that, it was referring to the last evil god divine aura in the entire world residing inside Yun Wuxin's profound veins. However, the Phoenix spirit didn't know that Xianxia possessed another power of the creation god, the divine miracle of life. Light profound energy was something that attached itself to a being's profound veins and life. The divine miracle of life possessed the same quality. That was why it had healed Xianxia's injuries and awakened his slumbering profound veins after the royal wood spirit orb had triggered it to life. This was a miracle that perhaps not even the creation goddess of life herself could explain. When I was very young, father and mother once mentioned, our wood spirit orb was extremely special. It was called a miracle seed. I really hope that one day, it will really give Big Brother Xianxia a miraculous power. Back then, He Lin had said those words in his mind while he was crying and offering his spirit orb. Xianxia's eyes turned blurry as he whispered, "Thank you for the miracle you brought me, He Lin." He Ling bit her lips tightly, and it wasn't until a long time later that she was finally able to stop her tears from flowing. Linner would be very glad if he were to learn about this. Xianxia pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the sensation of the wood spirit orb clearly. It was true that he had suffered plenty of tribulations due to the evil god's divine power, but he had also encountered plenty of benefactors, and was rewarded with kindness and affection all the same. Ling did her best to clear the tears in her eyes before she turned around and said, "When will you be going back, Master?" Xianxia answered without hesitation. "A divine king may be considered powerful in the god realm, but the people who have their eyes on me are far stronger than that. That is why this isn't a good time to return." "In that case, are you going to cultivate here until your powers are satisfactory, Master?" Ling asked. But she was aware that this world's aura was incredibly thin and murky. This wasn't a good place to cultivate the divine way at all. "No," Xianxia denied as expected. "Blue pole star's level is far too low, and my progress would only be stunted if I were to cultivate in such an environment. Moreover, this place is rather close to the eastern divine region, and there are too many people who are familiar with my power and aura there. There is a chance that I may be found out if I were to cultivate here. To tell the truth, I am not the deciding factor of my return." "You are?" Xianxia turned to look at Ling. Ling was confused at first, but she quickly realized what Xianxia was talking about. "You mean the sky poison?" "That's right," Xianxia nodded. "I must return to the god realm, but I have no intentions of hiding and skulking around like a stray dog like when I first came here. We will return when the sky poison pearl has regained enough strength to threaten an entire king realm," Xianxia said with cold eyes. The evil god's divine power wasn't his only trump card. From the moment Ling had become the sky poison pearl's poison spirit, his other trump card had completely reawakened as well. Although there was a chance he might be forced to return before his preferred time, Xianxia glanced at the red star hanging in the west again. "Amen, I will do my best." Ling nodded seriously before a realization suddenly struck her. She looked at him in surprise and asked, "Wait, do you mean to expose the sky poison pearl's existence, Master?" "Amen." Xianxia nodded without hesitation. "My mind is pretty fuzzy tonight, but I was still able to figure out a lot of things. During my 4 years in the god realm, I did my best to keep all of my secrets from being exposed. But in the end, Kai and I still found out that I had the evil god's divine power, and even that old bastard Toomey became aware of it because of my relationship with Jasmine in comparison. The sky poison pearl is actually even more recognizable. When Jasmine and I first met here, she recognized the sky poison pearl immediately. When I saved Frozen Cloud's Asgard mistress just before I took off to the god realm, she had been able to call out its name immediately as well." Ling couldn't refute his point. The sky poison pearl's poisoning and cleansing abilities were second to none, which also meant that it was the only thing that could produce or cure some poisons. Thus, it was a pretty easy connection for those in the god realm to make. The god realm is gigantic, and their history and foundation are equally deep. Their knowledge of the ancient secrets must be incomparable compared to those from the lower realms. This means that it is only a matter of time before my secrets become fully unraveled since the moment I decided to return to the god realm. Xianxia looked surprisingly calm as he said this. "In that case, I may as well expose them on my own terms. They will only be my shackles if I continue to hide them, shackles that I'd imposed onto myself just like those 4 years in the god realm. It is true that there's no turning back after this, but I can find a way to turn them into something that instill fears into my enemies." A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he narrowed them slightly. For the past year, he had spent every moment of his time leisurely and worry-free, mostly indulging himself in worldly pleasures. To another person, it might look like he was no longer concerned with anything, but in reality, he was only doing so to keep those who cared about him from worrying about him. After all, how could he possibly forget or put down all those unresolved loves, kindnesses, enmities, and grudges so easily? He had done countless thinking for the past year or so. He had wondered again and again what he should do, and how he should do it if he could choose again from the start. "I spent my 4 years in the god realm hurrying almost blindly every step of the way, so I really should plan my steps carefully before I finally make my return," Xianxia said before closing his eyes. The future wasn't the only thing he would be thinking about. Every step he had taken, every person he had met, every land he had come across, and even every spoken line he had heard during the 4 years, he would be ruminating over them all. When he had made up his mind and gone to the god realm with Mu Bingyun, his only goal had been to find Jasmine. He had never thought to stay there or make any ties or relationships with anyone. But everything was different if his plan was to return to the god realm again. "I have one more question to ask." Eyes still closed, Xianxia's voice suddenly grew soft and forced. "Have you seen Honger?" He Ling's eyes abruptly turned sad. The poisoned spirit didn't give Xianxia an answer despite him waiting for a moment. In the end, he gave her a forced smile before turning around and walking toward the room where Yun Wuxin was asleep. He didn't open the door and walk in to see her, however. He simply focused on guarding her for the night and tidying his feelings. Clan, the profound beast disturbance at the 10,000 Beast Mountain was getting worse and worse each day, but the Phoenix clan was thankfully unaffected due to the Phoenix barrier. A figure flashed past the barrier and appeared inside the village. Countless emotions surged in Xianxia's heart as he stared at the familiar scene before him. This was where he had obtained the Phoenix inheritance and where he was reborn. This was where he had fallen into a slump and found Chu Yuechen and Yun Wuxin. A long time ago, he had accidentally fallen into this place while he was being hunted. The old him couldn't have known this tiny utopia would change his life several times. There was a Phoenix youth cultivating in concentration some distance away from Xianxia. The burning mark of the Phoenix on his forehead grew brighter and brighter. Suddenly, the boy noticed something and opened his eyes. He was immediately greeted by a smiling Xianxia standing in front of him. "It looks like you've improved even further, Czar." Xianxia smiled. "Ah," Feng Zhe exclaimed before getting up to his feet. "Big brother benefactor, you've come." "Amen, I'm here to see Xioner." Xianxia's gaze went past Feng Zhe when he said this. He could sense where Feng Xioner was right now. The excitement on Feng Zhe's face froze when he heard the name Xioner. Then he bit his lips in secret before bowing his head, begging, "Big brother benefactor, I know that Xioner has committed a grave error, but she really didn't meant to do it. She has cried many times over the past 2 days, and she has shut herself inside her room, refusing to come out for even a moment. She's really sorry for what she did, so can you please forgive her?" Xianxia tensed a little before he let out a sigh. Xioner was never in the wrong in the first place. I'm the one who should be begging for Xioner's forgiveness, not her for mine. "Ah!" Feng Zhe was stunned by his remark. He was going to say something more, but Xianxia had already disappeared somewhere. Feng Xioner's bedchamber was a small but very well-kept wooden room. Right now, she was sitting next to the window and staring towards outside with blank eyes. Xianxia soundlessly appeared in her room. The air was filled with the scent of sorrow. "Xioner," he called out to her softly. Feng Xioner shuddered once before getting up to her feet. When she turned around, Xianxia noticed that there were tear streaks on her face. The girl stared blankly at him in disbelief for several long seconds before she finally bowed her head and grabbed the hem of her dress tightly. "Young, big brother benefactor, I." Her voice sounded timid and panicky. She kept her head bowed firmly, and she dared not look him in the eye at all. She looked like a little girl who had just committed a grave mistake. "Xioner," Xianxia said gently, "I was feeling very uncomfortable since you've been gone for the past 2 days. Will you come back with me?" "Ah." Feng Xioner looked up and stared at him with wide eyes. She looked like she couldn't believe what she was hearing before she devolved even further into panic. But I committed such a terrible error. I'm the one who hurt Wuxin. I don't deserve to serve you ever, Ag. You're not the one who's in the wrong." Xianxia cut her off before she could complete her sentence. "You hadn't done any wrong from the start. On the contrary, you were the one who saved Wuxin. I was furious at the time, and my logic had completely fled. Worse, after I left the room, my head got caught in the door right as I was leaving Zinner's room. That was the reason why I said something so terrible to you." "PF!" Xianxia's joke had come out of nowhere, and it caught the defenseless Feng Xioner completely off guard. Then her face turned bright red before she bowed her head even lower than before. "Please forgive me," Xianxia said in the gentlest voice he could muster. "I promise I'll never say something like that to you ever again. I promise I'll never ask you to leave another time." Feng Xioner squeezed her hands together tightly before saying timidly, But I—" "Oh, right," Xianxia interrupted her again before continuing. "I've found a way to return Zinner to full health. Let's heal Zinner together after we head back, okay?" "Ah!" Feng Xioner looked up suddenly. Is that really true?" "Of course it's true," Xianxia nodded seriously while staring her in the eye. "Not only will she regain her profound strength, she'll become even stronger than she was before." Although Feng Xioner really wasn't at fault at all, she had still claimed responsibility for everything bad that had happened. It was because she was the one who had brought her before the Phoenix spirit, and as a result Yun Wuxin had lost all of her powers. That was why Yun Wuxin's condition had become a knot in her mind. However, if Yun Wuxin were to be restored to full health, her knot would naturally become unraveled on its own. "Come back with me, Xioner." Xianxia smiled as his tone turned just a tad forceful. Let's watch Zinner get better together. I'm not the only one who wants you to come back either. There are also Yuechen Zuer, Kei, even my parents. Everyone is hoping for you to return and they even scolded me a bunch, you know. Feng Zioner stared at him blankly. A while later, tears suddenly started pouring out of her eyes non-stop. Although Feng Zioner covered her mouth and tried to control it with all her might, her tears just wouldn't stop. Zioner, Xianxia hurriedly took a step forward. Are you still not willing to forgive me? Feng Zioner shook her head strongly before trembling for a very, very long time. Finally, she asked in a sobbing voice, Can I really stay by your side forever and ever? Amen. Xianxia nodded without any hesitation. You can stay until the day you find that I'm an eyesore. Feng Zioner's shoulders shook even harder than before. Finally, she was completely beyond words. Oh, there is one thing I've got to complain about. Xianxia's head bent sideways before he continued softly. You took all of my laundry with you when you returned home, so I had no choice but to wear my old clothes for the past 2 days. Ah, Xianxia's complaint elicited a cry from Feng Zioner. When she subconsciously rubbed her spatial ring and discovered that it was the truth, a bit of panic reached her tear-stained face. I forgot it wasn't on purpose. Ha ha ha. Xianxia laughed loudly before he grabbed Feng Zioner's hand and pulled her to his side. In that case, what else are you waiting for? Come on, amen. Feng Zioner tensed up all over when Xianxia had gripped her hand out of nowhere, but she had barely mounted a token struggle before she allowed him to pull her outside. Just a few steps later, a reddish color had stretched from her cheeks all the way down to her neck. Xianxia didn't leave the valley immediately. Instead, he went to the husband and wife Feng Beichuan and Feng Keiyun and left behind some very important instructions. It was only then that he finally walked towards the Phoenix's trial rooms with Feng Zioner. It was where the Phoenix spirit resided. Young master, do you still blame Lord Phoenix God for what happened? Feng Zioner asked softly. Xianxia shook his head and replied, That day, when I woke up from my coma and saw Zinner breathing weakly without any profound energy in her, there was no one I didn't hate at that moment. It was only after my head had cleared that I realized that the real person who was deserving of hate was myself. The reason it chose you to stay by my side was because it knew that you would never do anything to harm me. Conversely, that also meant that my guard was always lowered around you. Xianxia sighed quietly. I should have noticed the signs a while ago. The dew soon arrived before the Phoenix's trial rooms, but the Phoenix barrier in front of them was very different from the one in their memories. It was because the profound light shining from the barrier was shockingly weak. Xianxia stretched his hand and tried to touch the barrier, but the scarlet light in front of him suddenly flashed once before disappearing completely. Xianxia's hands became frozen in midair. Ah! Feng Zioner cried out softly before she fell into a daze. Then a deep sadness rose from her heart as she collapsed slowly to her knees. Lord Phoenix, God! The Phoenix aura that had been entrenched in this valley and protecting this village for so many years had vanished. Forever, the Phoenix clan turned utterly silent in an instant. Every Phoenix clansman had sensed the Phoenix god's passing, and they all knelt on the ground, looked up to the sky, and let their tears fall freely. Its passing didn't just mean the passing of a small clan's Phoenix god. It also meant that the last Phoenix spirit in the entirety of the primal chaos, the last being who bore the will of the Phoenix, had vanished from the world. From here on, the only traces left of the Phoenix were those who had inherited its bloodline and power. Xianxia closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh. Then, he knelt on one knee and saluted the Phoenix spirit solemnly. Back then, its time was already limited after it had gifted him its own soul origin and the Nirvana flame. 3 days ago, it had even used all of its remaining power to draw out Yun Wuxin's evil god divine aura in an attempt to save him. But the Phoenix spirit had still stubbornly held on because it was waiting for Xianxia to return and unleash all of his wrath on it. It was only when it heard that Xianxia had relinquished his hatred for it that it was finally able to pass away, in peace. After that, Xianxia got back up to his feet and whispered to himself, You once said that I am the hope. I won't run away or deny it any longer. I will do my best to become the hope you wish for me to become before that day arrives. This is the only way I can repay you for everything you have done for me. His attention was suddenly drawn sideways, just as he was finished speaking. After the Phoenix spirit had passed away, the Phoenix barrier that had been protecting the Phoenix clan had disappeared as well. Moreover, a large group of profound beasts was heading their way, albeit in a disorderly fashion. Every single one of their auras felt exceptionally violent. Chafe, it's terrible. It was at this moment an urgent voice cut through the air. The Phoenix barrier has vanished, and a huge amount of violent, profound beasts are heading our way. We must prepare for war immediately. In the past, the Phoenix clan was protected the Phoenix barrier, and the Phoenix god's naturally intimidating aura. That was why the profound beasts of the 10,000 Beast mountain range had never dared to get close to them. However, both of those things were now gone, and the profound beast's temperament had turned largely violent as of late. This also meant that this tiny utopia situated at the center of the 10,000 Beast mountain range was soon to become a disaster zone. The shout instantly caused the atmosphere in Phoenix clan to turn heavy. Phoenix flames started erupting everywhere as everyone got themselves ready for the incoming battle. Xianxia had jumped into the air in a hurry and looked into the distance, and everywhere she looked countless violent auras were stampeding towards this once forbidden ground. Yun-Qi turned around and appeared right next to Xianxia. Then a loud voice reached everyone's ears. "Everyone, there is no need to worry. Please withdraw your profound energies and back off for the moment." While saying this, Yun-Qi extended his arms and started circulating the light profound energy. The layer of light was incredibly thin, but it quickly spilled down the ground beneath and spread out to envelop the entire Phoenix clan. Not only that, it had covered the entire 10,000 Beast mountain range in just a couple breaths' time. Immediately, the violent roars of the profound beasts subsided until they faded away completely. The rampaging profound beasts froze where they stood as the confusion in their eyes faded away quickly like extinguished flames. A moment later, the profound beasts returned to being confused, but peaceful. The terrifying, violent, and dangerous auras started receding back where they came from like tidewater. The profound beasts weren't the only ones who were affected by the white light. Every Phoenix descendant within the vicinity felt like their bodies were submerged inside comfortable clouds, and their hearts being cleansed by streams of spring water. Even the worry, panic, and fear they were just feeling moments ago had all faded away into nothing. But that wasn't all. They felt like the negative emotions that had been lurking deep inside their souls were all washed away silently, leaving behind only purity and cleanliness. All that was left inside their hearts was an unprecedented sense of peace. "What is this power?" Feng Beichuan muttered as he looked at the sky. By now, the rampaging profound beasts had completely calmed down. Even those that were naturally violent and aggressive had become unusually gentle, returning to their territories or nests in peace and confusion. That was how the Phoenix clan disaster had ended before it even began. Yun-Qi looked around for any other signs of danger before dropping back down to the ground slowly. At his current strength, he had the power to determine the life or death of every profound beast in the 10,000 Beast mountain range. However, he was also aware that he would be damaging the ecosystem severely and leaving behind severe consequences, even though it was a sure way to nip the problem in the bud. It was exactly why Feng Zhuo hadn't dared to erase every profound beast from existence every time an attack had broken out, but had only suppressed them. The Phoenix clan members rushed over and gathered around Yun-Qi and Xianxia. Once again, they were staring at Yun-Qi in a new light, the younglings especially looking like they were worshipping a god who had just saved the world. "Yun-Qi, that was?" Feng Beichuan asked while barely suppressing his own excitement. Yun-Qi replied, "The reason these profound beasts have undergone a massive behavioral change as of late is most likely because they had been affected by some sort of darkness profound energy. Darkness profound energy can amplify a living being's negative emotions, which is why I used a profound energy of the opposite element to calm them all down." That was what he told them, but in reality he was very puzzled. Judging by the way the profound beasts were reacting, he was certain that they were being affected by some sort of darkness profound energy. But if that was true then, why couldn't he detect the darkness profound energy himself? Could it be that this unknown darkness profound energy is at such a high level that even I at my current strength have no right to detect it? A low-ranking profound beast's spiritual perception was both more sensitive and more fragile than the average humans, so it wasn't particularly strange that they were affected first. However, if the profound beast disturbances were to keep worsening like this, it was only a matter of time before it spread to other areas and affect higher-level profound beasts as well. In fact, if things were to keep worsening like this, would a human eventually succumb to its influence as well? Yun-Qi unconsciously furrowed his brows. "I see," Feng Beichuan nodded. He didn't try to probe deeper. "However," Yun Qi said. I still don't know where this darkness profound energy is originating from, and its influence has been worsening since the beginning. Although the profound beasts of the 10,000 Beasts mountain range have been pacified for the time being, it won't be staying this way for long. Every phoenix descendant within the vicinity looked worried when they heard this. Father, Feng Zhe asked, should we move away from this place then? We have lost Lord Phoenix God's protection, and we can't always ask Big Brother Benefactor to come over and help us every time there is danger. The youngling's eyes started sparkling with hidden emotions when Feng Zhe was finished, but Feng Beichuan hadn't given him a reply. The older men and women of the group were silent as well, staring forward with complicated expressions on their faces. They had lived here in seclusion for their whole lives, and they had gotten used to this lifestyle a long time ago. Although their bloodline curse had been broken, and their power had been growing stronger day by day, they still hadn't returned to society even to this day. Naturally, leaving their homes wasn't an easy decision for all of them. That is unnecessary, Yun Qi smiled before raising AM arm. There was a flash of fire and, chai! A bolt of phoenix flame flickered in the distant sky, and a new phoenix barrier exactly the same as the one before was created just like that. Not only that, it was so much stronger than before that even a monarch wouldn't be able to force their way in unless they had the phoenix bloodline in them. Right now, Yun Qi was still recovering his strength, and he wasn't even at 20% of his peak form. However, he was still many times stronger than the phoenix spirit had been, so it wasn't a problem at all to create a new phoenix barrier. Wah! Exclamations broke out. It's a new phoenix barrier. It wasn't just a new barrier either. Every one of them could sense that the phoenix power flowing inside was stronger than the old one. If this barrier doesn't get attacked by external forces, then it will remain this way for at least another 200 years, Yun Qi smiled, which means that I will be returning every 200 years or so to reinforce it, although I'm certain that you won't be needing it anymore after 200 years have passed. This is wonderful, this is wonderful, a phoenix old man exclaimed in excitement. They knew from the start that a restored Yun Qi must be incredibly powerful, and the latter had proven it easily by waving a hand and constructing a stronger phoenix barrier that could last for 200 years instantly. They hadn't even sensed any profound energy activity from him. It was only then that they knew that Yun Qi's strength had fundamentally exceeded their understanding and the limits of their very world. Thank you, Big Brother Benefactor, Feng Zhe smiled brightly at him. As long as you're not angry with me, Yun Qi replied with a smile of his own. Feng Zhe looked down at that moment and said in a very tiny voice, I would never be angry with you. Feng Zhe made an effort to widen his eyes further after seeing his big brother Benefactor and his sister together and noticing the strange atmosphere surrounding them. Feng Beichuan and Feng Keiyun exchanged a glance with each other. Then, the former shook his head with a smile before whispering, sigh to be young again. For the past few days, Yun Wuxin had been spending most of her time asleep. Although she would occasionally wake up from her slumber, her period of wakefulness didn't last long because her vitality was incredibly weak. Meanwhile, Yun Qi was doing his best to calm his mind and regain his own strength. Sometime later, he had finally regained enough strength to restore her profound energy. Illusory Demon Realm Yun Family. A barrier that could isolate all light, sound, and aura opened up inside a courtyard. It was a barrier Yun Qi had created with his own power, and there was no one in this plane who was capable of breaching it. Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin weren't the only people who were present inside the barrier. Kang Yue, Little Demon Empress, Feng Zuer, Zio Lingxi, Su Linger, Chu Yuechen, and Feng Zioner were all here as well under Yun Qi's invitation. Yun Wuxin was currently lying in Chu Yuechen's lap, her face deathly pale. Anyone who had seen her would have felt a terrible heartache. Yun Qi sat down in front of her and produced a small jade bottle from the sky poison pearl. Inside the bottle was a drop of divine water of life and dragon dawn jade nectar. Will Wuxin really recover to full Yun Qi? Are you absolutely certain it won't hurt her? Chu Yuechen asked, knowing that she had asked a very stupid question. Knowing how much love and regret Yun Qi felt towards Yun Wuxin, she knew that he would never allow any harm to come to her. However, she just couldn't let go of her worry completely. Yun Qi gave her a smile before replying, Don't worry, this jade liquid is made from the least harmful power in the entire world. Not only will it not harm Zinner, it will greatly enhance her constitution, her profound veins and profound energy, and bring her all the way to Zuer's level. Ah! Yun Qi's words stunned every woman in the courtyard. They all let out a surprised cry at the same time. What cultivation was Feng Zuer at again? She was the phoenix goddess of the profound sky continent and the first person to truly step into the divine way on this plane. Aside from Yun Qi, she was without a doubt the #1 profound practitioner on the Blue Pole Star and a historical miracle of the profound way. But Yun Qi also just said that he could restore Yun Wuxin from no power, all the way to Feng Zuer's level in one go. Although the remark had come from Yun Qi himself, it was still so unbelievable that even Feng Zuer and the little demon empress were having a hard time believing or accepting it. Yun Qi didn't give them an explanation. He tapped a finger against the jade bottle, and the divine water of life and dragon dawn jade nectar appeared at his fingertip immediately. They looked like translucent dews that shone as bright as stars. An indescribable aura of purity and holiness instantly filled the entire courtyard. "Zinner, you don't have to think or do anything. Just believe in me, okay?" Yun Qi said softly. "Amen," Yun Wuxin answered before parting her lips obediently. A white light appeared from Yun Qi's body, and he closed his eyes before brushing his fingertip against Yun Wuxin's pink lips. Then he delivered the divine water of life and the dragon dawn jade nectar into her body with a tiny surge of profound energy. BZZ? In that moment, Yun Wuxin felt like a tiny universe had exploded inside her own body. An impossibly vast power spread across every corner of her body, but it was also incredibly gentle. Not only did she not feel discomfited in the slightest, she actually felt like she was in paradise. The two droplets' energy was so huge that some of it was discharged out of Yun Wuxin's body and into the surroundings, causing an equally vast but unnaturally gently profound energy storm around her. However, the storm had immediately vanished in the next instant. Turning his wrists and wrapping Yun Wuxin in a layer of light profound energy, he made sure the divine water of life and dragon dawn jade nectar's medicinal force were fully locked inside his daughter's body without leaking. At the same time, he guided the spreading spirit energy and fused them swiftly into Yun Wuxin's body, blood, meridians, and profound veins. What happened next was like a dream to the girls who were watching with their eyes and their spiritual perception. Yun Wuxin's weak life force had suddenly gotten unusually strong in just a few breaths' time. Then, her profound strength aura began climbing at a rate that could only be described as absolutely terrifying. Elementary profound realm, nascent profound realm, true profound realm, spirit profound realm, earth profound realm, sky profound realm, emperor profound realm. The cultivation of the profound way demanded foundation, accumulation, study, and opportunities. Some people might never be able to climb up to the next great realm in their entire lives. However, Yun Wuxin's profound energy was defying all common sense and skyrocketing through several great realms in a row. In less than half a quarter of an hour's time, Yun Wuxin had reached the tyrant profound realm, her former level before she had sacrificed herself to save her father. Her ascension didn't end there, however. Her profound energy was still increasing at an extraordinary rate, and all the while Yun Wuxin had her eyes closed peacefully without showing any signs of pain whatsoever. Tyrant profound realm, sovereign profound realm. Finally, after almost an hour had passed, Yun Wuxin's profound energy had surged past the final limit of the sovereign profound realm, and the mortal way smoothly without any hitches. In the end, she started giving off a divine profound aura the girls had only ever sensed from Feng Zuer. It was only then that the white light enveloping Yun Wuxin had finally started to dissipate. Yun Qi withdrew his outstretched arm after the treatment was finally over, and he opened his eyes at the same time as Yun Wuxin. Right now, Yun Wuxin was sitting at the first level of the divine origin realm. In just an hour's time, she had ascended from a powerless mortal all the way to the divine way. Yun Wuxin raised her arms and felt the power in her. Then she looked at Yun Qi with starry eyes and said, "Daddy, you're so amazing." "Ha ha," Yun Qi smiled from the bottom of his heart when he saw the look of pleasant surprise on Yun Wuxin's face. "Of course, how do I deserve to be your father otherwise? However, your understanding of the profound way is far behind the power you currently possess, so you'll have to spend much time studying and adapting to it. But don't worry," Yun Qi slapped his chest once before continuing, "none of that will be a problem since Daddy's here. From here on, I'll be teaching you about the profound way myself." "Amen." Yun Wuxin's smile looked incredibly happy. Yun Qi took out another jade bottle before looking at Kang Yue. "Now it's your turn, Yue." "Ah!" Kang Yue exclaimed while staring at the jade bottle Yun Qi was holding. She immediately guessed something and said, Is it the same spiritual nectar as the one you used on Zinner? Amen. Xianxia nodded. You'll have the strength of the divine way just like Zinner. That means no one will be able to hurt you on this plane. Kang Yue's lips parted slightly before shaking her head with a smile. I don't need any profound strength so as long as you and my sisters are with me. I'm certain that this divine object is extremely precious, and I don't think that you should be wasting it on me. Xianxia knew that she would reply this way. I know that you aren't interested in the profound way, but you see, an increase in profound energy isn't the only benefit of reaching the divine way. More importantly, it increases one's lifespan to around 10,000 years or more. He looked at her with an apprehensive look on his face. You don't mind accompanying me for the next 10,000 years to come, do you? Kang Yue's gaze trembled before she shot a look at Xianxia and the others. Zinner and Yuer's portions aren't the only ones I've prepared. Xianxia produced yet another jade bottle in his hand. This is Lingxi's. This is Yuechen's. This is Zuer's. This is Linger's. This is Kei's. And this is Zioner's. Ah, Feng Zioner was completely caught off guard by Xianxia's final remark. Then she took a small step backwards and stuttered in panic. I have one too. And no, you shouldn't, this is too precious, you can't possibly waste it on someone like me. Xianxia beamed at her and said, Relax, I know these items are heaven-defying in this world, but it's something that you can find anywhere in the God realm. Back then, I drank this every day like I was drinking water, and I still have plenty of them, so you don't have to feel sorry at all. I reckon that it'll be a real waste if I don't use it on you, Zioner. He Ling. Feng Zioner stopped talking and bowed her head just like that. She looked even more tense than ever before. Kang Yue's hesitation vanished immediately when she heard his reassurances. She smiled happily and said, Very well, of course, I'll gladly accompany you for an eternity, husband. Although Xianxia still hadn't recovered more than 30% of his strength, using light, profound energy as an assist didn't really constitute a burden for him. After that, he helped Kang Yue drink the divine water of life and Dragon Dawn Jade nectar. Then Chu Yuechen, then Xianxia, Feng Zuer, Su Linger, Little Demon Empress, and finally Feng Zioner. Everyone's profound strength was increased to the divine origin realm at once. As for Feng Zuer, she was already a divine way profound practitioner in the first place. So not only had she ascended all the way to the peak of the divine origin realm, she was a hair away from reaching the divine soul realm. How best to describe the difference between planes? In Blue Pole Star's history, the first person to ever possess the power of the divine way was without a doubt Xianxia Wenchen. To this end, he had spent innumerable years cultivating, plotting, scheming, and hiding until the time was right. He had even gone so far as to abandon his physical body, distort his soul, and shorten his lifespan to finally achieve the divine way. And even then, he was only able to become a half-step divine way profound practitioner. But Xianxia had managed to produce 7 divine way profound practitioners, using a couple of spiritual nectars he had obtained from the God realm in a single evening. And they were all full divine way profound practitioners, no less. If Xianxia Wenchen was still alive today, he would have choked to death from excess fury. Forget Xianxia Wenchen. Even the king realm denizens of the God realm would have vomited all the blood in their body if they learned that Xianxia had spent 8 whole drops of divine water of life and Dragon Dawn Jade nectar on 8 lower realm mortals. The Dragon God realm especially would wish they could eat him alive. Xianxia had spoken of the divine water of life and the Dragon Dawn Jade nectar like they were worthless in the God realm. So the girls had no idea that the liquid they just drank was in fact the divine objects of divine objects even in the God realm. It was something that even the sons and grandsons of God emperors had dreamed of possessing. There are 9 more in here. Xianxia took out all the jade bottles holding the divine water of life and started calculating carefully. 1 for father, 1 for mother, 2 for both my grandfathers, 1 for Yuanba. And let's not forget about Frozen Cloud Asgard. Master, He Ling suddenly spoke up weakly in his mind. It is true we still have a lot of Dragon Dawn Jade nectar with us, but these 9 drops are literally the last 9 divine water of life in the entire world. Are you sure you want to use it all on someone else? The last 9 drops, you say? Xianxia was caught off guard. It takes Master Shenzai an average time of 300 years to create 1 drop of divine water of life, so the 17 drops she gave me was everything she had. Also, improving one's cultivation massively isn't the only benefit the divine water of life has. It can swiftly heal a person's wounds and save their life in a pinch as well. Why don't you save some for yourself, just in case a situation comes up, master? Xianxia pondered for a very long time before replying. At my level, the divine water of life really isn't that effective on me anymore. I'd feel better if I use it on them, though. Ling had no choice but to give up after that. Meanwhile, Xianxia was unconsciously cupping his chin while imagining Xianxia's impossibly beautiful figure in his head. To think that she would give away every divine water of life and dragon-dawn jade nectar she had, not even counting the ones he had drunk while he was staying at the forbidden land of Samsara. He certainly hadn't expected her to be so generous with him. On second thought, she gave me her own person, so I guess it's not that strange. Say, she couldn't have fallen in love with me, could she? The thought lasted for only an instant before he extinguished it completely. After having spent some time with Xianxia, he knew that she was way too detached to ever fall in love with him. For the longest time, Xianxia had a feeling that Xianxia was using him, literally and figuratively, to achieve a certain goal, but he wasn't able to decipher the what or why of the matter. On the other hand, he hadn't lost anything to her, and she hadn't taken anything from him. In fact, she had saved his life and given him everything that was of value. What in the world was she thinking? It looked like he could only hear the answer from Xianxia herself after he had returned to the God realm. At Blue Wind Nation's borders, a ray of white light poured down from the sky and swiftly calmed down all the violent auras that were growing increasingly out of control across the entire wasteland of death. The bestial roars that had been resounding for days had grown still, and even the violent atmosphere that had persisted for the longest period of time had dissipated, as if a storm had blown them all away. "Thank goodness Sister Kang Yue can finally be at ease," Feng Zuer exclaimed gladly while looking below her. But Xianxia shook his head and said, "This peace won't last too long. In fact, it may even get worse and worse." The worst-case scenario he had imagined was that normal mortals and even profound practitioners would succumbing to the influence of the darkness' profound energy. If that happened, he did not dare imagine what a world where every living being's negative emotions were drawn out and amplified would turn into. "I must find the source that caused all this. Have you found the reason yet?" Feng Zuer asked. "No, not yet." Xianxia turned to look towards the east, "but there is a place I must check first." When he had lost all of his powers, he was powerless to care about all of this. But things were different now that he had regained his powers. Feng Zuer followed his gaze and recalled something. "Do you mean Azure Cloud Continent?" "That's right," Xianxia nodded. "In fact, I'll be heading over right now." "In that case, I'll come with you." "No need," Xianxia replied before imagining the dark abyss in his head. "There is a very special pocket world that only I can go into. I'll be fine on my own." Xianxia didn't notice that a pair of icy eyes had been watching him in the distant skies while he was speaking with Feng Zuer all this time. However, the light in her eyes hadn't stopped trembling since the beginning. It was Mu Xunian. This wasn't the first time she had come over like this. When she had come to Blue Pole Star for the first time and saw Xianxia alive but without his powers, she was determined not to return after going back to Snow Song Realm. She hadn't allowed Mu Bingyun to visit Blue Pole Star either. But after just 3 months, she had come to the Blue Pole Star again. Every time she would swear that this was the last visit, that she would never see him again, and that she would forget about him once and for all. But her resolve would last at most 3 months before she lost control and secretly came to Blue Pole Star again, watching him from the distance. It was almost as if she was possessed or something. This time, though, she discovered that Xianxia's aura had completely changed. He had actually regained his former strength. She had no idea what had happened during the time she was gone, or how Xianxia had regained his powers. She knew even less whether she should be glad or afraid for him. It was because him regaining his powers meant that he might be swallowed in the stream that was the God realm again. After parting ways with Feng Zuer, Xianxia flew straight toward the east. Although Xianxia wasn't well versed in the laws of space, the space in the Blue Pole Star was so fragile that it was like a piece of thin paper that he could easily pierce with his strength. That was how he traveled to the Azure Cloud Continent at high speed. All the while, he was followed by an undetectable figure in the sky. The moment Xianxia had entered the Azure Cloud Continent, the scene that immediately entered his sight caused him to frown deeply. He had lived on this continent for 27 years during his last lifetime. Although he no longer yearned for it like he used to, this continent still held a special place in his heart. Azure Cloud Continent was a continent in Blue Pole Star, just like the Profound Sky Continent. Although their total number of peak experts was less than the Profound Sky Continents, they basically possessed similar auras and elemental laws, because they were all on the same plane. However, everything had changed since he last remembered them. His ears were filled with the crazed roars of profound beasts, each one more violent than the last. From time to time, the sound of profound explosions and shattered earth would reach his ears as well. No matter where he looked with his eyes or spiritual perception, both profound beast and human territories were filled with violent and brutal auras. Every profound beast was acting like they had gone completely insane. Although this scene was extremely similar to the profound beast turmoil that broke out at the profound sky continent and illusory demon realm from time to time, the two disasters couldn't be compared to each other at all. It was because this turmoil and unrest was happening all across the Azure Cloud continent. Worse, Xianxia could clearly sense a large amount of high-level profound beasts, and even reclusive but exceptionally powerful profound beasts among the rioters. Every time a profound beast at that level were to unleash their power, it could only result in terrible disaster. He didn't even need to think to know that the Azure Cloud continent had completely devolved into a disaster zone where humans and profound beasts fought each other to their deaths. By now, countless lives must have already been lost to this senseless fighting. The further Xianxia stretched his spiritual perception, the bigger his shock became. Very soon, a terrifying thought surfaced in his mind. If this situation were to be allowed to continue, then the Azure Cloud continents today may very well turn out to be the profound sky continent and illusory demon realms tomorrow. Xianxia fell silent for a moment before he appeared at a place he was all too familiar with. Cloud's End Cliff. Standing at the edge of Cloud's End Cliff and staring at the black abyss that looked like the open maw of a devil beneath his feet, Xianxia frowned slightly before jumping into the darkness without any hesitation. In the sky, Mu Xunian's gaze abruptly tensed as she unconsciously reached out to him. When she had first arrived at the blue pole star, the black abyss' unusual darkness aura had already caught her attention. After having probed the abyss herself, she quickly learned that it was hiding a most terrifying world of darkness, one that could threaten even a recovered Xianxia if he wasn't careful. Xianxia had vanished into the darkness immediately after leaping off Cloud's End Cliff. A moment of hesitation later, Mu Xunian followed him into Cloud's End Abyss while remaining concealed as well. Unlike the last time, Xianxia didn't fall into the abyss slowly or cautiously. He quickly appeared above the barrier that kept the world of darkness sealed, just in time to catch a blast of thick darkness aura straight to the face. It was enough to make him frown deeply. Xianxia stopped right above the barrier and watched the world beneath him in silence. An aura of darkness was rising to the surface like an invisible smoke. He had no doubt that the darkness profound energy had originated from the darkness world sealed underneath. The leakage hadn't only happened recently. Many years ago, the barrier had already loosened up a little and caused some darkness profound energy to leak out. It was how Jasmine had discovered this darkness world in the first place. However, it was clear that the amount of darkness profound energy that was leaking out now was far greater than it was in the past. It made Xianxia felt both puzzled and worried. There were two reasons behind his puzzlement. One, the darkness world beneath him had very likely existed since the ancient era of gods. That meant that the barrier must have existed for at least 1,000,000 years or more, so it was only to be expected that the barrier would eventually give way to the passage of time. However, considering how high-level this barrier was, its failure should be an arduously slow and time-consuming process. The fact that it had only leaked a bit of devilish energy 6 years ago despite having existed for millions of years before was proof of that. However, it had only been 6 years since he last came here, so how and why had it faltered so quickly all of a sudden? 2. The amount of devilish energy that was leaking out from the barrier wasn't especially impressive, even though the barrier was 10 times worse than he had remembered it to be. Maybe it was enough to affect the Azure Cloud continent, but it still shouldn't be widespread enough to affect somewhere as far as the profound sky continent or illusory demon realm, even assuming that it had been like this since 6 years ago. Moreover, the level of devilish energy in this world wasn't nearly high enough to escape his detection. Qi's brows had already unwittingly sunk to their lowest point. It seemed as if he had thought of something. It was highly possible that the devilish energy leaking out of the Cloud's End abyss was not responsible for the profound beast disturbances. Rather, like the profound beast rampages, it had occurred due to that same unknown reason. After he released his divine senses and confirmed that there were no living creatures in the surrounding region, he stretched out both of his hands, releasing the darkness profound energy within his profound veins and the devil origin orb simultaneously. His eyes immediately turned pitch black, and they began flickering with an extremely bizarre black light within this completely lightless and pitch black abyss. His entire body was also surrounded by a layer of dense black energy. Darkness profound energy would amplify one's negative emotions, and it would even warp one's heart and soul. Xianxia was well aware of this fact. However, he had complete mastery over darkness profound energy, so this sort of influence could also be contained by him. His brows knitted together tightly, as the darkness profound energy he released with all the strength he could muster flowed down, toward the barrier of darkness below him. This barrier had been forged from pure darkness energy, and only darkness profound energy could repair it. If not, Jasmine would have already repaired it back then. The Xianxia at that time was not able to accomplish it, but now that he had attained the power of a divine king, he could just about barely get it done. Xianxia quietly and calmly focused as the darkness profound energy quickly melted into the barrier of darkness, firming and sealing up the places where it had loosened. Darkness profound energy. He had only been in the God realm for 4 short years, but he was well aware of how taboo darkness profound energy was to the eastern, western, and southern divine regions. He remembered every single detail of the reaction of the entire audience to Wei Hen's erupting darkness profound energy during the conferred God battle. It was not the least bit exaggerated to claim that the devils, who possessed darkness profound energy, were considered heretics that must be slaughtered to the last man by the 3 divine regions. Heretics who angered both God and man and could not be tolerated on heaven or earth. Thus, during his 4 years in the God realm, even though he had experienced many life and death situations, he had never once dared to use his darkness profound energy. Even when he had forcefully opened Far Shore Usra at the end in the star God realm, thrusting himself into a situation where he was sure to die, he had not used any darkness profound energy at all. This was because he was afraid that after he became a devil person in the eyes of the world, he would be rejected and spurned by Shen Zai, by Manhwa, by all of the people who truly had care and concern for him. He was even more afraid that he would implicate the Snow Song realm after his death. But never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that the current him, the him who was enveloped in black light and releasing his darkness profound energy to its very limit, was clearly and fully seen by a single person. At Manhwa's level, darkness would no longer prove an impediment to one's eyesight. Furthermore, at this very moment, she was extremely close to Xianxia. She was not even 300 meters away from him, so she could see every single expression he made, every single change that occurred in those expressions very clearly, let alone his darkness profound energy, a darkness that was even deeper than the deep night before the dawn. Manhwa's pupils were contracting, and they continued to contract for a very long time. That pair of icy eyes was completely filled by the black light that Xianxia's body was radiating. She knew what this was, because she had killed many devils in her life, and it was not the first time she had come into contact with darkness profound energy. Yet she had never seen darkness energy that was this pure before. Manhwa did not move for a long time, and her entire person, from her gaze to her very aura, seemed to have been completely frozen in place. The world was dreadfully silent, and the passing of every breath became interminably long. Xianxia continued to release darkness profound energy with all of his might, as tiny beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. It was extremely likely that when those 4 people who had come from the God realm were passing by the blue pole star, they just so happened to be near to where the azure cloud continent was, and it was only because they sensed the devilish energy leaking from Cloud's End abyss that they decided to descend to the blue pole star. But why did they even come to the lower realms in the first place? Compared to the aura of the God realm, the aura of the lower realms was not only thin but murky as well. If one stayed there for too long, it was even possible that one's vitality and profound aura would be polluted in some way. This not only provided no benefits whatsoever to one's cultivation, it even shortened one's lifespan. Even those profound practitioners who had ascended to the God realm from the lower realms would rarely be willing to return to the lower realms. So why did those 4 people come to this place? It could not possibly for training, right? 1 hour passed by, 2 hours passed by. The black light radiating from Xianxia's body finally started to dim before it faded away completely. He opened his eyes and stretched out a hand to wipe away the sweat on his brow before he gave a long sigh of relief. This was a barrier that was left behind from the era of the gods. Even if he possessed the power of a divine king, he could still only make the smallest of repairs, and it was absolutely impossible for him to restore the barrier completely. Naturally, this sort of shallow repair would not last for too long. If he did not want the devilish energy to leak out, he had to come here every once in a while to repair it again. At this moment, his movements suddenly grew sluggish, and his head jerked up to stare at the space above him. He was near the bottom of Cloud's End abyss, so no matter where he looked, there was only complete darkness. Xianxia could not detect any objects or auras, he could only detect darkness. Xianxia withdrew his gaze before giving a self-deprecating laugh. However, he did not leave after sealing away the leaking dark devil energy. Instead, he continued to descend once more, his body directly passing through the barrier as he sank straight toward the dark world below him. In the air above Cloud's End cliff, Muxuanian's celestial figure slowly materialized. She still wore those blue robes, her appearance as icily beautiful and unstained as always. She closed her eyes, her towering chest heaving with an incomparable intensity, and it did not stop heaving for a very long time. It was a full 7.5 minutes later before she could finally open her icy eyes and glance at the pitch-black abyss below her. After that, she withdrew her gaze, turned around and left. It was just that the aura radiating from her body had become incomparably disordered. Before she left, her gaze even swept across the red-colored star in the eastern sky. A year ago, she had only been able to see this red star from the blue pole star. But from half a year ago, some of the star realms in the eastern divine region could also clearly see it. And now this star, which radiated scarlet light, was stamped in the eastern part of the Snow Song realm. After he passed through the barrier of darkness, a huge tearing force assaulted him from below. However, to the current Xianxia, even if he did not possess any darkness profound energy, this tearing force was no longer irresistible. He lightly floated downwards before his feet firmly pressed against the black icy cold ground. Ayo. Just as he set foot in this world, a deep and muffled roar suddenly rang out far in front of him. When Xianxia had first come to this place all those years ago, he had been shaken so fiercely by those faraway roars that he had vomited blood. But it was only today that he truly understood just how dreadful those dark auras were. Because those extremely distant roars made even the current Xianxia felt as if his chest was being fiercely smashed by a hammer, caused his internal organs to churn. This also meant that even given his current level of power, the gigantic darkness beasts which prowled in this place could still threaten his life. He did not have any doubts that if any single one of these gigantic darkness beasts in this place were to be let out, it could easily destroy the entire blue pole star. To think that such a dreadful world of darkness was actually hidden in this lower realm, which possessed an incomparably inferior level of strength. What kind of secret was hidden within this place? ROARR. HSSSS. The roaring sounds emanating from the gigantic darkness beasts kept incessantly ringing out in the distance. Xianxia surveyed his surroundings before raising a hand, and he very quickly sensed that something was different. The darkness aura in the place had clearly become far more active since the last time he had been here. Furthermore, the roars of the gigantic darkness beasts ringing in his ears seemed to be even more agitated than they had been previously. The darkness aura in this place has more than doubled in activity, Xianxia muttered to himself in a low voice. No wonder such a serious leakage of devilish energy had occurred. As he regulated his breathing and his aura, Xianxia chose not to ponder the question further. He stood up and relied on his still clear memories as he flew in one particular direction. In this world of darkness, even divine profound practitioners would very easily mix up their directions. But Xianxia, who possessed darkness profound energy, was clearly not one of them. He did not dare to release an aura that was too strong, so as to avoid startling one of the gigantic darkness beasts whose locations he was unaware of. As a result, he was not flying at a very fast speed, but his flight did not deviate from its course. As he pierced through the darkness, he quickly reached an incomparably quiet region of darkness. No gigantic darkness beasts lingered here, and they did not dare to approach this place. Even sound seemed to be isolated from this place, and Xianxia could no longer hear any of the roars made by the gigantic darkness beasts. Gradually, as Xianxia's speed slowed, a strangely brilliant purple light appeared in this world of darkness. This was a gigantic purple sea of flowers, and countless stalks of bizarre flowers swayed amidst the purple light. Demonic flowers proudly bloomed atop stems of deep purple, and every single flower petal seemed to be made of lustrous and shiny purple jade. Each petal released a bright purple light and released a dull purple mist that seemed to come from the underworld itself. The netherworld Udambara flower. In this world of darkness that could devour everything, the light that they exuded was not buried by the darkness in the slightest. In the past, these netherworld Udambara flowers could easily steal away Xianxia's soul. But right now, he could only feel a slight tugging and pulling sensation on his soul, and there was no longer any discomfort. He drew near to the sea of flowers, and he finally managed to spy a small figure within it. She was just as small and delicate as Honger, and her feet did not touch the ground. She quietly floated amidst the lustrous sea of purple flowers and her long silver hair which was as lustrous and brilliant as an entire galaxy of stars, surrounded her delicate body. Her long hair hung low, a long portion of it dragging against the icy-cold ground. A layer of lustrous white light covered a body, and it seemed as if she wore no clothes beneath that layer of light. Her pair of small and slender snow-white legs were not covered by this white light, and they were completely exposed. Her tender legs hanging below her body like a pair of ice lotuses, each of her snow-white toes glistening as though they were carved from jade. There was also her eyes, that pair of eyes which were the most strange and bewitching eyes Xianxia had ever seen in both of his lives. The top half of her right eye was pale yellow in color, while the bottom half gradually turned a dark shade of green. The top half of her left eye was a pale blue color, while the bottom half gradually became deep purple. 4 different colors radiated from those eyes. When Xianxia spotted her, he discovered that she was staring straight at him. After that, she left the sea of netherworld Udambara flowers, her bright silver hair dragging against the ground. She soundlessly took to the air and arrived in front of Xianxia. She was very close to him, and she looked up at him with those strange and bewitching 4-colored eyes. The light radiating from her eyes was exceptionally beautiful. It was just that those eyes had never displayed the color of any emotion before. However, Xianxia could faintly sense happiness from those eyes. As he stood right next to her face, a face that looked exactly like Honger's, Xianxia felt his heart and soul deeply stir. A faint smile appeared on his face, and he spoke in a very soft and gentle voice. "We meet yet again. The last time we parted, I said that I'd come to see you often, and I never thought that such a long time would pass before I could see you again." The strange and bewitching girl's lips parted softly before closing yet again. It was as if she wanted to try to say something, yet she could not make a single sound. Only those strange eyes remained fixed on him. They did not blink even once. The last time, Xianxia ultimately could not figure out what was hidden in the depths of her colorful eyes, and he still was not able to this time around. But he was very convinced about one thing, and it was that this girl felt a very strange sort of intimacy towards him. What was even more strange was that he always felt at ease when he was around this girl. Even though she only possessed a spirit body and was shrouded by countless enigmas and mysteries, he did not feel any caution or wariness towards her. "Before I knew it, 6 years have already passed," Xianxia said in a gentle voice. "I've only come to see you after these 6 years have passed. Are you angry with me because of that?" The young girl gave a very gentle shake of her head. Xianxia gave a faint smile and looked her in the eye. "6 years ago, you gave me the darkness seed, thus giving me the power to beat Xunyu and Wenshin. You not only saved me, you also saved this world. You are my Xianxia's greatest benefactor." "That's right. The netherworld Udambara flower you gave me back then, I've already given it to her." Once he said that, the light in his eyes dimmed and the smile that curved his lips grew bitter. "It's just that. I'll never be able to see her again.